Welcome, everybody, to Ska Wednesday. I am your hostess with the mostest, big shooter on the radio, Chad Dukes, versus the world. 106.7 The Fan. Thank you very much for checking out the program today. Know that it is a tumultuous time. Got the election, got the pandemic, you're working from home, you're furloughed, you're this, you're that. Just know that I greatly appreciate you spending a little portion of your afternoon, however much you can, with your pal Big Shoot, because I can keep the lights on in the house, which I greatly appreciate. Appreciate the Ska Wednesday official theme song for the Pie Tasters. Did such a tremendous job on the nickel-size skank. They are the best. Go out and buy all the Pie Tasters albums. You will be happy that you did. It's good time in music, man. Little horn action, little soul, little ska, little funk, little reggae, little all of it. It's all in there. And we'll take you through the entirety of your afternoon, and we'll hit all the hot button topics. I don't know. You know what I'm going for. Also, we got crossing the streams for you today. Tommy Loverro poking his head in on the program. And all of your favorites moving forward. There's a lot of, fluidity in the NFL right now. Lots of trades going on. We have a World Series champion. And, of course, I'm getting tired of people saying, oh, this is the most 2020 thing there possibly could be. I mean, I just feel like every time somebody throws that out as a platitude, they're acting like they're the first person that came up with it. But I must say, while I don't use that cliche, if I was going to use that cliche, it would be about what the hell happened at the World Series last night as the Dodgers are clinching, where Justin Turner is playing baseball and they come running out to tell him, hey, you've got COVID, go wait in the broom closet, wait in the muck room. You can't talk to anybody. We're going to go out here and win the World Series, and you just got to stay in here like a leper. You got to slap this scarlet V on your chest. You're not allowed to celebrate with your teammates because we're hysterical. Now, I get it. This is a real thing. It is a real disease. I am not a conspiracy theorist, just so you don't know. You know where I'm coming from. I don't talk about this stuff on the air. I want everybody of every political persuasion to feel comfortable listening to this show. I want you to be able to have a few larfs and all of that. But I'm generally against hysteria. If there is a blizzard coming, or there is supposed to be rain, or blah, 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 there is an election, I'm generally not going to be the one running down the middle of the streets, waving my arms over my head, screaming the British are coming. That's not going to be me. And nobody actually does that, right? Like, they do it on the internet. They don't do it in the real world for the most part. But let's go through this timeline. All right, let's take a look at it. So, on Monday, the 26th, the Los Angeles Dodgers, partake in a COVID-19 test. It's called a spit test, which is disgusting, of course. On Tuesday, October 27th, last night, second inning, Major League Baseball receives word that Turner's Monday test came back with an inconclusive result. No biggie, right? Remains in the game. Major League Baseball asks the lab in Utah to fast-track Turner's test, and they do just that. 5 innings later, by the way, quick word.
We appear to have lost Chad. We will be trying everything in our power to get him back momentarily. This is usually a very temporary issue with the unit. The connection might go out for a few seconds. Chad will be back.
We'll take a break right here. Hopefully we'll get Chad Dukes back on the line and get him ready and rocking for the rest of Chad Dukes versus the world. Feed on Sports and Landfill, hanging out with you right here on Sports Radio 106.7 The Fan.
Sorry about that. Here's the problem. We don't have any engineers. Oh, we have engineers. They're just nowhere to be found. So when this happens, it's just up to me, Landfill, and Brock to figure out what's going on. That's no exaggeration, right, Landfill? Like, we're the only ones that are actually troubleshooting when that crap goes to crap.
Yes, that is true. I was here just trying to do something so we didn't have dead air, and Brock's running around screaming. Like, I was temporarily turning the microphone off for a few seconds and just screaming to Brock. He's like, there's no engineers! I can't find them!
I mean, can you imagine if he was ever confronted with a real emergency? Like if there was a fire or something?
It would not be well. It would not go well.
Nobody handles stress worse than Brock Lesnar. It's Chad Dukes versus the world. I'll be here for as long as technology lets me. Phone number is 800-636-1067. It is Scott Wednesday. I always enjoy a nice fill-in session from Landfill. Joining me on the Mattress Warehouse hotline, MLB insider for radio.com. And, of course, Insider Calls are brought to you by Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit. Make sure to go check out John Heyman's podcast, Big Time Baseball. Best guests, best insights around radio.com phone application. You can download it right now. John, always great to have you class up the joint, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I don't even know how to feel about that story and this story as it is progressing. Well, you've been doing this a while, John. Give us some perspective. A team winning the World Series, in the middle of it, you got a guy with a COVID test. He's dragged off to the boiler room, told that he can't be out there, comes out, back out, snaps a couple of pictures, drops the mask for a couple of seconds. Everyone loses their minds. Give us some perspective on this story in relation to others you've covered in your time.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's certainly taken some attention away from the Dodgers breaking a 32-year hex. I don't think it quite rises to jinx, but that's a long time for a team that's been really good and has won 8 straight division titles. Wouldn't have expected them to take this long to win the World Series. And that's the main story. There's no question about it. And it's unfortunate that the Justin Turner episode has taken a little attention away from that. He clearly should have been pulled, and he clearly, in my way of thinking, he should have listened to the MLB security team and others who told him to stay in isolation. I understand. He's been waiting his whole life to be part of a World Series celebration. I think, in my opinion, we've all had sacrifices. I mean, with Thanksgiving may be sacrificed. The weddings have been sacrificed, and bad luck that he got the COVID. We don't think he did anything wrong. You can easily get it. Millions have gotten it, and it was just an unfortunate situation, and he should have sat it out. But he was in the celebration, and he's taking hits now, and it's taking attention away from the fact that the Dodgers finally won, which really should be the top story.
Man, that's a great point, John, and I feel bad for the dude, and I don't know. I might try to get a picture. If I was working for that team, I might try to get him a picture like they did last night. But that's a great point. I mean, the first question I asked you about was that story, and not the Dodgers finally, achieving this, something that they have been talented enough to do for many years and have many, bites at this apple. They finally get to that mountaintop, and you're right, this story is completely obfuscating that one.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's no question about that. That's the day and age that we live in right now, where COVID has taken the center stage. And, I love Justin Turner. He's a great guy. He's great with the media. I get it. He's been waiting forever. He should have sat it out. There were not only players there were friends and family on the field. And, it is outdoors, but the other hand, if he's going to celebrate, I think he should be in isolation for 10 days. I'm not advocating this. I'm sure they celebrated back in the clubhouse afterward, and I'm sure the teammates would have welcomed him in. Should have saved it for that. Didn't need that extra hour of celebration. I get it. I get his grave disappointment, but and he didn't do anything wrong to get it, I'm sure. But to me, he made a mistake going out on that field. It's just. It's like half the story at this point.
It's a great point. MLB insider John Heyman joins me on Chad Dukes versus the World Radio.com MLB insider. John, talk to me about this team, the history with the Astros, with the Red Sox, the sign stealing that went on there. How much more does the champion, when you've had the rocky road to Dublin that the Dodgers have had and overcome what they've had and fallen short to teams that have then proven to not be doing things the right way, how much more does this championship mean because of that?
I think it means a lot. They need to right that wrong of 2017. They really should be the champion of 2017. If any title has an asterisk, it's the Astros title. They were found to have cheated by quite a bit, and in quite an obvious way. We missed it at the time, but luckily, or unluckily for them, there was a whistleblower, Mike Fiers, not too happy with them, and they got caught. And it's unfortunate that the Dodgers didn't win in 2017. I think they should have won that year. 2018, the Red Sox were investigated. Something was found. We don't know how much. So that one's a little bit less clear, and that series was less close as well. So I don't know if I say they should have won that one too, but it's been an unfortunate run here where the Dodgers lost due to cheating in 17. And they really, frankly, had a great team in a lot of the years. The last 8 years, they won that division title. And it's something to have seen their rival, the San Francisco Giants, win 3 World Series in this decade. And until yesterday, the Dodgers having 0 when they won many, many more games and all the division titles, basically. Yeah. So, they were due. It's their time. A lot of people would say they choked or whatever in the past, but I don't think so. I think they were cheated more than they choked. But obviously there were some bad moments there where they didn't play up to their regular season capabilities. I get it, but it's good to see the best team win this year. They won 43 games. They barely got past the Braves. Game 7, they won by 1 run. Braves were awfully good. They could have gone down there easily, but they got through it. And give them credit for perseverance and resilience and all that. And they are the champions, and deservedly so.
At the beginning of this whole thing, John, when they fired the season up and it's like, hey, this is going to be a sprint. I had Thom Loverro on the show. He's very cynical. He's like, this isn't baseball. This doesn't mean what it should mean. I think if you compete under these circumstances where, you're away from loved ones and the grind of baseball, then you also have the pandemic going on and all this isolation, and these guys are affected. I had him eating on my show, and he talked about he played that game in Baltimore with no fans in the stands. He said it was awful. He said he couldn't wait to get out of there, and that's how they had to play this entire time. I'm not putting an asterisk next to anything. I'm going to put a star next to it and say, my God, the fact that you were able to persevere during these circumstances. There was plenty of other teams that just, went out there and punted. We might have one here locally that's what happened with this season. I don't take anything away from what the Dodgers accomplished because this season was so bizarre. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. No reason to take anything away. Obviously, they still would have been in the playoffs over 162 games. They won 43 out of 60 games. I mean, there was nothing keeping them from the playoffs. So put that aside, the playoffs were actually made tougher for them by having 16 teams instead of 10. They had to get through that first round in a best of 3. I know we all thought they'd beat the Brewers, who couldn't hit at all this year, but you never know what can happen in a best of 3 series. So they got past that, so it's an extra round. They had a tough matchup with the Braves. Got through that. I think they deserve it. I mean, they were the best team. They got through the pandemic. They got through the gauntlet of the playoffs this year with the extra round. And, there's no reason to put an asterisk on it. That's just plain silly at this point. I understand going in, we were all somewhere between skeptical and cynical. I, frankly, didn't think they would make it all the way through. They did, barely. I understand that because, obviously if the Rays had won Game 6, based on the history of how they handled these things, we probably would have had a postponement. They won't admit that, but that's probably the case. I mean, they would have done contact tracing and more testing, and even with no more positive tests, you have one positive. They had a postponement when they had one, even was a false positive, as it turned out, with a Giants outfielder, Dickerson, and going back to San Diego. It was tough. It was difficult. They made some mistakes early on. There were 2 teams with outbreaks. Obviously, those teams made some mistakes, and MLB at that point letting Miami back on the field once they had 4 or 5 positives, that was a mistake. But they toughened up on COVID, and they got through it. They had almost 2 months of no positives, which included really almost a month of traveling around with no positives, which is amazing to me. And then the month in the so-called bubbles, which, it's not really a bubble, but whatever you want to call it, fine. So, I give them all the credit in the world. 0 thought of an asterisk for me for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
I would agree. Last one for you, John. I know you're probably busy today. It happened with Alexander Ovechkin. It happened with Peyton Manning and these other sports. Like, you get this knock on, hey, it's the postseason. Hey, this guy can't step up. He's not clutch. You look at Clayton Kershaw's numbers in the postseason. They're perfectly fine. A couple of bad outings aside, they're actually very good. So the rap on him as far as, being in the moment and being in the postseason, and it's just, I don't think it's ever fair, but it's something that gets discussed endlessly on sports talk radio. How much does the conversation about him change, whether it's correct or not? How much different is it because they won this World Series?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot. It certainly blunted that criticism. I think the people who are criticizing it would certainly be less enthusiastic about it. I mean, he could have been the MVP of this series. Had a brilliant first game, pitched well enough in the second game, even without his best stuff. Obviously, Seager was the MVP, but it could have gone to Kershaw, frankly, even Turner, the way he played before he went out there at the end. Obviously his regular season numbers are better than his postseason numbers. That'll happen. You're facing better competition. There are guys who are the opposite who just really step up and are incredible in the postseason. But I would say there are three factors here that contributed to Kershaw's, let's say, lack of postseason pedigree before this year. One would be that the Astros cheated. They certainly ripped him really hard in 2017, and that shouldn't have been. So that's one thing. Another thing is that the St. Louis Cardinals, I think they had his pitches. Not that they did anything wrong. I think they were smart baseball people and figured it out because they just destroyed him the few times that they faced him. And the other is, I think, the managers he's had, excellent managers, Joe Torre, a Hall of Famer, Don Mattingly, still with the Marlins, Dave Roberts won this title. I think that Kershaw's, the reverence for Kershaw is so great that these managers, despite all the talk about the analytics and all that, they all defer to him and left him in too long. Whereas Kevin Cash had the criticism last night, and I think rightfully so, of taking out Blake Snell after 5 2/3 when he was dominating. He should have stayed in, but I think there were too many times. And if you look at Kershaw's record, his ERA after the seventh inning is like 7-something. The first 2 times or 2.5 times through the order, he's been perfectly fine. But I think that, not that he was going to embarrass the manager, but I think the manager, either because of the way he pitched for them or just because of the reverence that he has in the clubhouse and wanting to keep him on their side, or whatever the reason, too many decisions were made to keep him in too long, and I think that loaded the numbers and put him in a bad spot. So I definitely think there are 3 factors to it. That said, I understand the case. He has been better in the regular season. In fact, I think he's the best regular season pitcher probably since Koufax. There's an argument to be made for Pedro, perhaps, but I think he's probably the guy based on his regular season record, and he has not been as good in the postseason. So if someone wants to make that argument, they can still make it, but it's a slightly weaker, much weaker argument today.
It's at John Heyman. Follow him on Twitter, radio.com, MLB Insider, and host of the podcast Big Time Baseball. Check it out wherever you find fine podcasts and on the radio.com application. John, thank you so much, buddy. Have a wonderful week.
All right, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Insider Calls brought to you by Indeed. If you need a hire, you need Indeed. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit. RDC Sports MLB Insider, John Heyman. Okay, you don't have to be a baseball zealot to jump in on this. Justin Turner, what's the right call to make here? Clearly, we've all sacrificed during COVID. Some people sacrificed health. You have people that have lost their life. You have people that had to reschedule weddings and holidays and birthdays and all of that. Finally winning the World Series and ducking out to get a pick with your teammates. What is the correct reaction to this, the practical reaction to this? Because it is certainly a multi-tiered issue and one of the most bizarre storylines we've probably had to discuss in sports talk radio for the past couple of decades. So phone number is 800-636-1067, 800-636-1067. Let's get an update from Pete Medhurst, and I'd love for you to weigh in on the AAA Always On Call listener lines on that topic next.
I love Justin Turner. He's a great guy. He's great with the media. I get it. He's been waiting forever. He should have sat it out. There were not only players there were friends and family on the field, and I'm sure they celebrated it back in the clubhouse afterward, and I'm sure the teammates would have welcomed him in. Should have saved it for that. Didn't need that extra hour of celebration. I get it. I get his great disappointment, but and he didn't do anything wrong to get it, I'm sure, but to me, he made a mistake going out on that field. It's like half the story at this point.
Is this a ska version of Dracula?
Yes.
That is awesome. Where did you find this?
I just Googled Scott covers Halloween, and this is apparently by the Holophonics, I think is how you pronounce it.
This is great. Burn to the witches to slam in the back of my Dracula. Oh, that's great. I'm very excited for this. Happy Scott Wednesday, friendos. Got a billion calls on the Washington football team that has 2 wins. I can't get one call on the biggest story in sports. And I get it. Not a lot of people care about the World Series once the Nationals are out of the picture in the area, but this story is Batsa in the Gagutsa. That was John Heyman commenting on it coming back from break. And there's a lot to this. I was trying to go through the timeline at the top of the show. Kind of want to get back into that here. And I'd love your thoughts on this as far as what's the right move to make here. I don't know. I don't know what the right move to make is. I don't know if I could have been the guy with the Dodgers that said, hey, Justin Turner, you can't go out there and snap a quick pick because you feel perfectly fine, but you got COVID and you might say it was outdoors. He wore a mask except for the picture, dropped it, then put it back on. And I get John Heyman's point as well. A lot of people have sacrificed quite a bit. So what are we asking of Justin Turner that you wouldn't ask of, people that they're missing funerals, they're missing weddings, they're all kinds of different stuff. So I understand the essence of that argument. But I also know that if I was a teammate for this cat and he's like, hey, I feel fine, I'm going to wear a mask, let's take a quick pick. I don't want to be the one to say, no, you better stay inside of that boiler room because you could affect. I mean, John Heyman's biggest point was, hey, this is taken away from the World Series. It took away from the World Series victory the second you had a player pop positive in the middle of the game and he had to get sent into the dugout. That was going to be a massive story regardless. Now, does it obfuscate the same way it would now that the guy walks out and there's video of him smiling and smoking and joking? Probably not. Here's the timeline. So we got Monday, he takes the test. Tuesday, Major League Baseball receives the word that the test was inconclusive. So they fast-track Turner's test to be redone. On the same day, during the 7th inning, 5 innings later, the test comes back positive. The Dodgers move swiftly to remove Justin Turner from the game before the 8th inning, and he is told to isolate. So later on that evening, after the World Series has concluded and the Dodgers are your champions, Justin Turner walks back out on a Globe Life field and is the video and pictures of him celebrating with teammates about an hour after the Dodgers won the World Series. In a lot of the shots, he's wearing a mask. And in others, he's taking a picture, it's below his chin and blah, blah, blah. I understand people being critical of this and saying, hey, you got to look out for other people, even people that are not his teammates. Like you come out there and say, it's not just you and your teammates and team personnel that's out there on the field. Like there's family members. I assume there's at least a minimal media. There's other considerations to take here. But he was outside. And this is probably a most likely for most players a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Here's what I can say. It's not the best look. I wouldn't want to be the one to tell this guy he's not allowed to do this, that he's not allowed to celebrate this way with his teammates if they are amenable to it while out of doors. If they're in the locker room spraying champagne on each other and he's sitting there with no mask and hooping and hollering and wearing the ski goggles, okay, let's have a different conversation about that. But the lecturers and the lecturing, they're out, and they got ammunition. And I got to be honest, it's a credible argument. I'm not saying it's not. I just don't. I don't want to be the one to make that call. That's what I feel comfortable saying. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. 800-636-1067. Landfill, you made a good point, right? As far as what had happened already earlier in the game. I mean, how much more damage could be done?
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking there. Look, I'm not one of these people that's like a complete hypochondriac about getting the virus. I'm also not one of the guys that's just completely ignoring it. I'd say I'm pretty much right there in the middle.
Yeah, I think most people are.
But they had already been around this guy for like 3 days. They didn't take the test 20 minutes and then he tested positive. He took this test like a day earlier. They had already been around the guy for a long period of time.
Yeah. That's a great point. And it also goes back, though, to what we all kind of, those of us with common sense, realize how much of this is just the image you're putting forth. It's just virtue signaling. It's just we're taking this seriously. I think there's a lot of that. I think that, there's no reason why the guys calling play-by-play need to wear masks while they're calling play-by-play. It's ridiculous. And yet they do this. They do this because it's not just about them contracting the virus or spreading the virus. It's about the image that they want to put forth to the people watching on television. And by the way, it leaves the realm of baseball fans the next day and heads right into the mainstream, where COVID is one of the most hotly debated things that you could possibly encounter. Your point is a good one. Yeah. I mean, he's smoking and joking and palling around with these guys and shucking and jiving for the past few days. They took the test a day before.
Here's all I'm saying is if I feel like if I was one of his teammates, I probably wouldn't have been getting up next to him during the celebration process. But the point of Major League Baseball's testing protocol was primarily so they could play the games, and this was the last game of the season and it's over. So I feel like nobody there actually cared anymore at that point.
I think I go back to, I understand why people might have a problem with this, but I am not going to be the teammate that says, hey man, you need to go sit in that, call screening room because I don't want to be anywhere near you and you could potentially, I'm not going to make that argument.
It's not like any of these guys are 80 years old or, have lung disease or something.
No, but it's, I understand the argument that it's about, hey, what if you take it, then you take it here and you go to Harris Teeter, blah, 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 blah. We all understand it.
You don't want to get it anyway, but, you could avoid the guy if you wanted to.
I mean, he said he had absolutely no symptoms. And also, watch it come back and be a false positive, and then no one will ever talk about this ever again.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, when that happens, the media doesn't make nearly as big a deal out of it. Nearly as big a deal. Let's go to line one and talk to Anthony in La Plata. Anthony, thanks for the call. You're on the Fan.
Hey, Dukes, great show.
Thanks, buddy.
So here, you just said it. It could come back as a false positive, but then again, the guy's in his prime of his life. He's been playing baseball for his whole life. He just won the World Series, the greatest achievement, and you're going to tell the man he can't go out on the field and celebrate? I mean, if I was in his shoes, I'd be out there too. And his teammates got to understand what's going on. They just won the World Series. Yeah, he tested positive, but like Landfill just said, he tested positive the day before. They were all around him the day before, day of, and during. So it's really, at that point, who really cares?
Great question.
He just won the World Series. He needs to be celebrating with his team.
But
it's the
who cares?
Compliment for a baseball player.
You know who cares. You know exactly who cares. It's the people that are flying their drone over your backyard when you have 9 people instead of 8. People care, and it's about image. It's World Series. It's your grandest stage. Baseball can't be happy that it took place that way. But to me, for this particular set of circumstances, you won the World Series. It's not a guy sneaking out because he wants to go to a bar or a strip club. We've talked about this. Guys going out to bars, Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones hanging out at a bar. I don't have as big a problem as everybody else does, but that's way more selfish to me than wanting to go take a picture with the damn trophy that you just sacrificed all of this to be with. But it leaves the baseball realm and it goes into the mainstream where we have all of these people that are just desperately sitting there on the internet waiting to lecture and waiting to attack you and waiting to call you a spreader of disease, and you don't have any desire to protect your fellow man. And we know the conversations that happen because of this, and they probably want to avoid that. All right, good calls on this. 800-636-1067. We can take some more next segment. You're listening to Chad Dukes vs. the World. Hey, you're doing a kick-ass version of doing a Halloween rendition of Scott Wednesday, Landfill. I love it. I am the one hiding under your skin. I love it. Chad Dukes vs. the World on 106.7, The Fan, Scott Wednesday. If you want to head over to my Twitter page and be terrified, I guess somebody is making an action figure for the Boogeyman from the real Ghostbusters. For those of you without context on this, the Boogeyman from the cartoon The Real Ghostbusters is the scariest thing that's ever happened in the history of mankind. And watching that when you were a child was tantamount to abuse. It was this big goat-hoofed monstrous thing that would come out of your closet when you got scared, and it would feed off of your fear. And then the Ghostbusters eventually caught him. I roped up my closet in my bedroom as a kid. I think until I was 16. I was so scared of the Boogeyman. And now, they've made an action figure for him. It's dead on, and I want nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. I don't know why I find this creature so horrifying. Probably is because it traumatized me as a youth. But I'm looking at the picture of it, and if someone put it in the house, I think I'd burn my house down, is I think the way that it would go. I don't want anything to do with it. But if you hearken back to not the Ghostbusters cartoon, the real Ghostbusters cartoon, and not Slimer in the real Ghostbusters, where they turned it into something that was just for Rugrats, when it was just for crumb snatchers. I mean, tiny little kids. No, the original real Ghostbusters is pretty badass, but I want nothing to do with the Boogeyman. Nothing to do at all. All right, phone number is 800-636-1067. Let's go to Brian in Sterling. He's a Dodgers fan, and he wanted to chime in on the turn of events, pardon the pun, and how much debate there has been about this today. And look, here's what you can't argue. It is taking away from a World Series victory, at least in the media discussion. So 800-636-1067 is the phone number if you'd like to chime in. Brian, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, Chad? Thanks for holding it down in Oakton.
Sure, no, my pleasure.
As far as the mask thing, I can see both sides of it. He came out after the players were done celebrating with their families. And during the whole World Series, managers are taking their mask off. The players are running around without masks on. The wives are all sitting together without masks on. I would have been a little more concerned if he was out there while the children and the wives were still out there. But he came out for a group photo. And you're right in what you said, that kind of, unfortunately, this whole thing with Turner and not, having this COVID issue has taken away a lot of allure from the Dodgers. Waiting 32 years for this. Clayton Kershaw finally getting his ring. Turner happens to be the all-time leading home run hitter in Dodger history. And we're not talking about a franchise that's just 20 years old now. There's a lot that went into that game last night that I think should be more discussed than if he had a mask on, if he had COVID, if he didn't. Is it a positive, false negative, things of that nature? Why did they take Snell out after he was pitching a one-hitter and absolutely mowing down every Dodger player imaginable? So those are my thoughts. Appreciate your show.
Yeah, thanks for the call, bud. Yep, appreciate you. Thank you very much for the call. Yeah, I don't. If today it takes away from it a little bit, that's fine. The nuance will return in a couple of days when you talk about legacy, you talk about winning. And there was going to be a different discussion about this World Series because of the nature and the circumstances under which it was won, regardless. The argument that Heyman made, hey, everyone's making sacrifices, everybody's missing big events. I understand that. There's not a lot of people that are missing out on finally winning a World Series. Very few human beings on earth are missing out on that. And Landfill made the point. The guy if he has COVID, he had it days ago. He tested positive days ago. They just found out about it during that game. So everybody was already exposed at that point. I don't know. I don't know what that means to you. It means a little bit of something to me. Phone number is 800-636-1067. Thank you for the calls on this. It is Ska Wednesday on CDVTW. Coming up in just a couple of few. We have Crossing the Streams, one of my favorite segments of the week. We'll do movies, we'll do mixed martial arts, we'll do video games, all of that good stuff after I tell you about my good friends at Santini's. Do I need to talk about Santini's here, Landfill? Oh, these are copy points. Is this this is a new spot I need to do, right? Very good, very good. I can just tell you, go to mysantinis.com. Love them. Their food's delicious. And if you're having a late lunch or an early supper, you could do a lot worse. Check out Santini's. All right. You see what time it is. You know what day it is. It is Sky Wednesday. It's time for my favorite segment of the week, Crossing the Streams, where we go through your entire entertainment Lunchable in real time. That's right. One segment. We get it all done. Let's start right where we always start, with the silver screen. Very cool. Sean O'Connell is my guest. CinemaBlend.com, a Real Blend podcast. You can find all of his works there, and he joins me on the Mattress Warehouse hotline, as he normally does. Sean, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Not much, man. Holding in there.
Holding it down is all we can do at this point, my friend. Talk to me about Wedding Crashers 2. Vince Vaughn's got this reputation that, he doesn't like sequels, and I get that, and people are generally very dubious of sequels, but I can't think of too many more comedies that are as beloved as the original of this film. What is the latest here?
Well, it's kind of awesome because you're exactly right. He has so many titles that a sequel would just be a layup. Like if he put out Dodgeball 2 years after the original, he could have made a fortune. Old School is another one. But he says to us, he was on Railblend, and the episode's going to drop next week, tied to his Freaky, that body comedy one he's doing. Comes on the Railblend podcast, and he says that they are circling a script for Wedding Crashers 2, and that the directors actually pitched him with an idea that moves the story forward to contemporary times. Didn't tell us much about what it is, but it's enough of a good story that he wants to do it. And the fact that he avoids doing sequels unless it's a good idea really makes me feel pretty confident. But you talk about getting that cast back together. I'm sure Owen Wilson would do it. It's a signature franchise for him. They got to get Rachel McAdams back. Isla Fisher is huge for that. Bradley Cooper, who played Zack in it, he's an Oscar-nominated director now at this point. Is he going to come back for the fun? But I don't know. We'll see. I trust in this premise, and I would love to see it.
If you can get Ben Stiller to come back and do Hubie Halloween with Adam Sandler, I think we can do anything at this point.
But listen, too, with the Borat movie proves that, like, enough time can pass, and if it's the right time to bring a character back, then you do it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't know how you feel about it, Sean. People get really angry about sequels, but if you get the original group together, like if it's not Dumberer and Dumberer or whatever that one was before the other sequel came out, I'd rather you take the shot. Like the originals are not spoiled for me when somebody goes out there and tries to make another one. I've always been fine with them at least attempting something like this.
Yeah, but then you get 3 Hangover movies, and I don't know if that's necessary. But you're right, like, Ghostbusters 2 is its own thing. It's kind of fun. It's kind of cute. But then when they do Caddyshack 2 and no one's involved, that's a cash grab. I was honestly stunned that Vaughn doesn't have more sequels on his resume. When I was sort of looking up his filmography, just getting ready for the interview, I figured I'd see 1 or 2. Now, he does show up in Anchorman 2. But he recently has gone after more sort of action dramatic roles. He was in the Mel Gibson film. He was in Fighting With My Family alongside Florence Pugh playing a wrestling promoter. So he's not afraid to push himself, and I admire him for that.
Yeah, I agree. The Snyder Cut, this is something that everybody is steamed up for. I saw that it was going to, the budget with the reshoots and the visual effects, $70 million, which is pretty wild considering. Is this all just going to be considered found money? Like, how successful? There's no box office for this thing. How successful does it have to be for HBO Max's, justifying a budget like this? It seems like it's a very unique entertainment endeavor. I don't know really how to qualify or quantify its successfulness.
One of the only ways that it could be successful, because we'll never know the numbers, the streaming services don't tell you how many people actually watch, but they are paying now for 4 one-hour episodes. So if that thing can dominate conversation for 6 to 8 weeks, if you figure the couple of weeks before it, the few weeks during it, and then right after, then it's well worth the investment because they want to bring people over to subscribe to the service. If people subscribe to the service just to watch this, it's a win. It's sort of based off Mandalorian, which is going to kick back up on Friday. That was a huge hit for Disney Plus, a new streaming service that needed a title that generated awareness.
Sure.
And so they're investing in the idea of Zack Snyder's Justice League because they want people to know the only place you can see it is on HBO Max. And if you pay for the subscription and you come watch it for those 4 weeks, then they win right there.
Do you think how much, and this is something you're not going to have the answer to. I don't know if anybody has the answer to, Sean, but it's interesting to talk about. You're kind of blending the world between television and movies in a way that we've never seen before with Marvel's in bed making all these live action shows. Star Wars is in that business. And it's not like a UPN show. You know what I mean? Something that's made for Channel 20 and it kind of looks that way. They got big budgets. They got the special effects. Everybody saw that in Mandalorian. How do you think that's going to kind of change what gets decided to be pushed towards a movie and what gets decided to be pushed towards, everybody's various premium video on demand services?
I think that the things that go to theaters for the foreseeable future, because even when theaters finally get to open back up, they're going to play in front of limited audiences. You're not going to have packed houses anymore. They're going to be all big ticket items. But moving forward, when you take on a franchise, it's going to have some mix of television and film. The Marvel properties are going to always have now a Disney Plus component and some other type of film component. The Spider-Man universe is being built at Sony. They signed Lord and Miller, who directed the Into the Spider-Verse animated movie, or co-produced it, I'm sorry. They now have a 5-year deal to develop a Spider-Man universe on television so that it can build off of the Venom movies and the Morbius movies and the Spider-Man films. All of these major franchises going forward are going to have some type of streaming component. And if you're invested in the overall universe, same thing with Star Wars, Chad, I'm telling you, whatever Star Wars does in the next 10 years is going to be 70% television with an Obi-Wan series and other things like that. Wow. And then every once in a while, a big ticket film. But it's all leaning heavily towards streaming and telling things over 10 episodes.
Yeah, I get it. And having the storyline and these massive story arcs be pushed forward by the television type series to supplement what's going on in the movies, it seems to be the direction they're heading in as well. It is Sean_O'Connell. Follow him on Twitter, The Real Blend Podcast. Check him out. cinemablend.com is the website. Sean, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Always a pleasure to have you on. Let's head on over to the Octagon. Greg Rosenstein is my guest, theathleticmma.com. You can find him there. He's on the Mattress Warehouse hotline. Talk some fighting here on Crossing the Streams. Greg, what's up, buddy? How are you?
What's going on? Hey, it's great to come on a Washington football team winning week.
Oh, man, it feels so good. I said that on Monday. I didn't do any analysis. I just let people call in, and it's like, how many times do we get to celebrate a win over Dallas over the past 21, 22 years, whatever it's been? It is a rarity for sure.
For sure. I mean, I'm 31 years old, and I can count on my hands the comfortable wins we've had over the years, so it's pretty nice.
Dude, I've been doing this shift for years and years and years, and I think it's 6 or 7 of times I've gone on to be able to do a victory show with Dallas, so I know exactly what you're talking about. So we've had a couple of days here to kind of bask in the Khabib news. I heard Dana talk about it. I heard GSP on Ariel's show talk about it. It seems like it's a consensus. He doesn't seem like the type of cat that's going to Chuck Liddell or Tito Ortiz this. I mean, how convinced are we that we've seen the last of that guy in the octagon?
I think it was a pretty shocking decision this past weekend, just because Khabib is probably the most dominant fighter in UFC history. You can make the argument whether he's number 1, 2, 3. He's probably in that group in terms of best fighters ever, but most dominant for sure. Still in his prime, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of crazy to see this guy who's just at his peak of his career right now go out. He cited a lot of that based on his dad, who passed away because of COVID this summer, not being in his corner anymore and not really having the will to fight anymore. But this is MMA after all. People retire all the time. Conor is quote unquote retired. Henry Cejudo is quote unquote retired, but they're both likely coming back. This one felt a little different just because Khabib is, just the way he said it, and he seems really sincere about it. This doesn't seem like kind of a cash grab like other people have had. So I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed out of the sport.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. I know that this is fight sport, and people say outlandish things all the times, and people say things that probably they wouldn't in other sports. And, Dana's up there dropping F-bombs left and right, so you can take cues from the biggest figure in all the sport. But Bones Jones and kind of the way he's going after saying that he's the best pound for pound, especially in light of, some of the loss that we've talked about in Khabib's life, I don't know. Does it feel appropriate? I'm sure he's getting, besieged on his social media at all times about these issues, but I don't know. I didn't like some of the stuff he said so close to that victory for Khabib.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, for fans who haven't been following John on social media, like basically the second Khabib won and retired, John has been on a kind of tirade going on and on about how Khabib is not better than him in terms of best overall fighter, and personally, I would probably agree with that just based on John's argument that he has like 15 defenses of his belt, whereas Khabib only has 3 at this point. But at the same time, it's like give the guy some time to celebrate this career of his. It's like nobody's coming at him, so why is he going, all out on Twitter and Instagram, defending his spot atop the rankings? The UFC actually bumped John down and Khabib up in their official rankings, and that really set him off yesterday. So, look, I think John has a point in terms of what he's trying to say, in his place in history, but at the same time, is it appropriate? It doesn't really feel like it.
No, it doesn't really feel like it. And I don't know. I mean, you could bring up, I don't think Khabib will, but he was never stripped of a belt. He's never been arrested 1 million times or had, pop positive and all these other things that we're talking about with Jones. It's like I understand your resume is very impressive. All of this other stuff is going to influence what people think about you ultimately. We're going to see Anderson Silva fight on Halloween. Is that something that we should want to see at this point?
That's a great question. I mean, Anderson Silva is a legend. He's probably in the discussion just like John and Khabib and GSP, like we've mentioned, in terms of best fighters ever. But at the same time, let's be real. He's lost 3 of his last 4. The one win he had over Derek Brunson was pretty controversial, and he's just a kind of a shell of what he used to be. So I don't want to say the UFC is like clinging to his name and everything right now, but he's just not what he used to be. But he was a legend, and he's saying this is his retirement fight, though we just talked about retirements, whether that actually sticks or not. But he claims this is his retirement fight, so I do think it's worth checking out just to see this guy one last time and see if he can kind of ride off into the sunset with a win.
Yeah, would be interesting. One of the questions Dana got was about boxing, and he's something about some quote about how boxing is, COVID was actually good for the development of whatever. Do we know what Zuffa boxing is yet, or do we have any update there? Has there been any follow-up as to when we can actually see that thing manifest itself?
Sorry, you kind of broke up there. What manifests itself?
Just boxing, the Zuffa boxing. I mean, he was asked about it in the post-fight press conference. Again, it's kind of just been on hiatus. Like, what is the latest there?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a latest. Zuffa boxing was what kind of put on the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight or event, you could probably say better. But, they've been rumored about doing Zuffa boxing for, I think, like a year now. I'm almost positive. Dana said last October they were going to make some big announcement about it. But as of now, I haven't heard anything. He says there's going to be something soon. I don't know if it's going to be some huge fight or just kind of a lower-level fight just to kind of get things going for them. But I am interested to see, if Dana enters the boxing space, if he can kind of change things up. Because right now, the UFC kind of has a monopoly. I would say they have 80% of the best fighters, in the world under their umbrella, so they can make every fight they want. They can run everything. In boxing, there's all these promotions. They do things differently. There's a million belts. It's like, will he be able to do the same thing that he's doing in the UFC for boxing? It's going to be a real challenge if he tries it.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot going on there, a lot of moving pieces, and we probably don't know. We don't even have seen the tip of the iceberg for that particular endeavor for Dana White and for Zuffa. TheAthleticMMA.com, at G Rosenstein on Twitter. You can follow him there. Greg, thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate your time today.
All right, thanks again.
Yeah, man. Good segment as always. Let's pick up some sticks. Very cool. Very cool. Brian Shea joins us. So much going on in the industry. GameInformer.com, at Brian P. Shea. You can follow him on Twitter. Brian, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man. How you been?
Fabulous, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me. In 2013, you wrote the Xbox One launch guide for the official Xbox magazine, which I believe I subscribed to. And then 7 years later, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X for Game Informer. Give me a little context. I mean, that's some staying power in this industry, and seeing a new console come about with new technology. I mean, gaming, I just feel like every 2 or 3 years is in a completely different space. Give me some of the best innovations, some of the things that you've noted. I'd love just a little commentary on the path that led us to where we are right now.
Sure. I mean, I think that especially for Xbox, this entire generation, the Xbox One generation, was kind of a make-right thing, where if you remember when the Xbox One was about to launch and they revealed it, it was just a cluster of messaging where it just was so non-consumer friendly. It's all about the DRM. You had to be connected online. You couldn't let friends play your games. You couldn't let friends borrow your games. And then they changed leadership. They basically had a state of upheaval in the Xbox leadership team. And, they've focused the last 5 or 6 years on just making it right, making it so that the Xbox is a great place to play. And I think they've done that. They've done an amazing job listening to their fans and their players. And, they've introduced things like Game Pass. They've introduced things like backward compatibility, which were much requested features. So really, the Xbox One generation was about Xbox learning from the mistakes they made early on in the generation and making it right, and then taking that team that made it right and developing a whole new console from the ground up. Now, when I say a whole new console, it might be a little bit of a misleading thing, just because it seems like the Xbox Series X is taking everything the Xbox One does well and just enhancing it to the umpteenth degree. Like, the SSD makes it so there's no load times. It really is focusing on that Game Pass angle, and it really does an amazing job of just doing everything my Xbox One does right now, but just unbelievably better. So I think that's the story that Xbox has been focusing on. From a PlayStation angle, they more or less won this last generation. They went into it being able to drop the mic on Xbox before it even launched. They emphasized on all the weaknesses that people were hammering on the Xbox, and they said, you know what, all those things Xbox One can't do, PS4 can do, and does it well. And then they had all the exclusives on top of that, which really made it the PS4 generation, I would say. Now, going into PS5, what PlayStation is trying to do is innovate even further. You know, they have an amazing new controller that they're really touting will be a game changer this generation. And they're also really hammering home the exclusivity again because, you know, you have Spider-Man Miles Morales, you have a new Horizon game next year, you have a new God of War game next year. So that's really what they're touting is like, you know, they have the SSD that loads really fast like Xbox does. They have nearly as good compatibility. There's a few games that don't work on PS5 that were PS4 games, but none of them are really noteworthy. But PlayStation has that the exclusivity in their corner, and that's something that I'm really going to watch as we head into the next generation. That's something that, you know, Xbox is still trying to figure out. They went into this last generation with hardly any big, heavy-hitting exclusives. And over the last few years, they've acquired all of these studios to make first-party games, and now we're going to really start seeing the fruits of those of that labor. Whether or not that can compete with, you know, the amazing studios that Sony has under its umbrella remains to be seen.
Cyberpunk delayed again. People are losing their minds about this. What is the reason for the delay, the impact? I mean, clearly everyone's going to buy the game regardless of this, but not a lot of good thoughts and and sentiment being shared on social media about this. I believe it is the third time.
Yeah, it was announced before this generation even started, really. Like they revealed Cyberpunk, I think in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a long road to release, and it seemed like this game was just never going to come out. And then obviously they started revealing all the new footage, and we finally got a date earlier this year. I think it was April was the initial release date that we had, and then that got pushed to September, then that got pushed to November, and now we're in December. The reason for the delay this time, even though the game has gone gold, which means it is content complete, it's ready to start getting pressed onto disc, but they ran into problems essentially with launching on so many different platforms at the same time. So if you think about it, they're coming out on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, Xbox One, PC, and Stadia, all at the same time. And basically they have too many platforms to really account for all the bug fixes they needed to do for like the day one patch. So they needed to delay it just to make sure that, you know, one or two of the versions weren't going to launch with just debilitating bugs. They basically said that they underestimated how long it would take to get that patch ready for all of the systems, you know, tested across all the systems. So to make sure that all the versions of the game launch with, you know, similar comparable quality, they wanted to delay it just, you know, 21 days.
It sucks. You get invested, and I bet people that aren't gamers will probably not understand, but like you look forward to these properties so much, it takes so long to develop them that when this happens, it really is frustrating. But I don't know. With BioShock Infinite, I remember when that was being delayed all the time. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a tremendous game. Ultimately, if it's a tremendous game, I think everybody forgives them for this.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's what you remember, right? It's frustrating in the year 2020 when we wanted to play this game in April. But, you know, 5 years from now, when we're looking back on Cyberpunk, if it does deliver everything it purports to do, then, you know, we're going to just be like, wow, that was an amazing game. I can't wait to see what else they can do.
Yeah, me too. Go ahead and Game Informer is where you want to go, GameInformer.com, and at Brian P. Shea on social media if you'd like to find him there. Brian, thanks so much, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Always a pleasure to you, my friend. And that was my favorite segment. If you haven't already watched Beetlejuice this season, I'm not really sure what you're up to. Not really sure what you're going for. It's Chad Dukes versus the world on 106.7 The Fan. Thank you to all my guests on Crossing the Streams. If you missed any of that, go to the radio.com app. It's free. You can grab it there. Just go ahead and put in your little information into your app store. Download that bad boy. You'll be able to listen to up to 24 hours of the content here on 106.7 The Fan. A whole bunch of radio stations, a whole bunch of podcasts. Nick Costos' podcast, John Heyman's podcast, all that stuff. It's fun. It's a fun little app. All right. Now, I have said many times on this show that it is loser speak for fan bases to believe that announcers are out to get them, referees are out to get them, media personalities are out to get them, radio hosts, sports center anchors, and so on and so forth. I think it's crap. I think maybe it's happened in the history of sports journalism and in, officiating, but I don't think it happens nearly as often as fans want to believe they do. There's some narcissism and frustration, all kinds of things warped into that. But, blaming the refs, blaming the league, Robert Girdell is biased, everybody hates our team. I just hate all that crap. Merle Hodge was a guy everybody claimed hated the Redskins for years and years and years. Troy Aikman was another one. I just, maybe they do. I don't know. I don't think any good can come of it. That being said, I am a fan, short for fanatic, and sometimes I have these thoughts, if I'm being completely honest. And sometimes I have these thoughts about, especially being in a division with the Dallas Cowboys, where I feel like the Cowboys put a lot of steaks in the freezer for a lot of people in the sports industry, so they get a certain type of coverage. I think that at least could make some sense potentially if you wanted to make that argument. Whereas I don't know that let's say, the Washington football team does. But I digress. There was a power ranking that came out today. A bunch of people tweeted it over to me for obvious reasons. And it's a power ranking for the ESPN website for week 8, 1 to 32. And what they do is they get all of their beat reporters in there and they write where they think the team is and who needs to step up. Who is the guy that needs to step up for these football teams moving forward? For example, the Steelers are number 1 in this for obvious reasons. For Minka Fitzpatrick is the player that needs to step up. And that was written by Brooke Pryor. Kansas City Chiefs, number 2. Who needs to step up? Harrison Butker. That's written by Adam Teicher. I don't know how to say his name. Seattle Seahawks, they're down 1 spot. Jamal Adams needs to step up. That's written by Brady Henderson, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I hope I wasn't convoluted in my explanation of that. The Tennessee Titans, number 6. Who needs to step up? Jadeveon Clowney, so on and so forth. So you say, Dukes, what's the problem? Well, I suffer no delusions as to where the Washington football team ends up on these things. I think that for justifiable purposes, they're generally at the bottom of all of these. If you want to see the list, by the way, if you want to see the ranking, Brock has informed me that he has posted it on Facebook.com/CDBTW. Head on over there and check it out. If you want to see what we're referring to. So we're getting down to the bottom half of the league, right? And I'm looking at these rankings, and inexplicably, the Philadelphia Eagles are number 21. 21. They're up 1 spot from 22 the week before, even though I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they've had a little bit of time here, or at least kind of a half-assed bye week because you play on Monday night after Thursday night or whatever it is. They're 2-4-1. 2-4-1. The player that needs to step up, Fletcher Cox. All right, talking about Carson Wentz picking up his game. They are ranked higher than the Detroit Lions, who are 3-3. They're ranked higher than the Denver Broncos, who beat the Patriots. They're ranked higher than the Cowboys and the Texans and the Bengals. And spoiler alert, they're ranked higher than the Washington football team. Well, okay. But they're a better run organization for the past few years, and you think maybe they're getting some of these players back. I guess that makes sense. I don't know if I'd put them above the Lions, but I guess it makes sense. You could make the argument. You scroll down. All right, scroll down. You get to number 25. Number 25. Getting towards the bottom of the list, right? 32. We all know the Jets are 32, right? So Washington will fall somewhere in here. 25 is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys, who are 2-5 and potentially the worst team in the league. Certainly over the past 2 weeks, they're the worst team in the league. 2-5 Dallas Cowboys. They say that Jalen Smith needs to step up. Todd Archer said that. Okay. You can just pick one? You could just pick one player that needs to step up for the Dallas Cowboys? Did you think this through? You say, well, Dukes, what do you care? That's not a very good number. Well, let's scroll down some more. Past the 1-6 Houston Texans, past the 1-5-1 Cincinnati Bengals, to number 28. Number 28 on this list, number 1 in your hearts. The only teams beneath this organization, the number 28 team, we'll call it, 28 car. The New York Jets at 0-7, the New York Giants at 1-6, the Jacksonville Jaguars at 1-6, the Atlanta Falcons at 1-6. Your Washington football team is locked and loaded at number 28. After they throttled the Dallas Cowboys last week, demolished the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday, they are rewarded with bumping up 1 point, 1 slot from 29 to 28. The Cowboys are 3 above them. How can the Cowboys be 3 above a team that just destroyed them, as Fred Smoot would say? How could that possibly be? Give me the reason for that. Oh, they're the Dallas Cowboys, and they put money in everybody's pocket. I don't know. Now, here's what's even more crazy. Here's what's even more nuts. I like John Keim. I think John Keim's a smart guy. I wish John Keim can come on this show. There's a weird thing with ESPN and going on non-ESPN shows, and I don't have any control over that. He has some sort of wink-wink, nudge-nudge deal with the Junkies. God bless him. That's nice. I like listening to John Keim on the Junkies. But the player that needs to step up for the Washington football team, according to John Keim in this list, is Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber. What? What are we talking about? Peyton Barber? Here's the listing. Here's the rationale. There are more than a few who belong on this list, and Barber may not be needed much longer for a consistent back. But for now, Barber keeps getting carries in Washington's jumbo packages. Average 2.3 yards per carry, 38 carries. He only averages 0.63 yards after contact. It's not like he's always getting huge holes, so his lack of production goes to the entire group. But if Washington keeps using him in this role, then the production needs to be greater. The team will not win with its pass game, and therefore needs to be more effective with Barber in the game. None of that's true. None of it. Now, I understand the argument. If you're going to play him, he needs to play better. They need to stop playing him. He doesn't need to step up. He needs to stop getting snaps. Chase Young probably is the answer here, just from the gaudy sack perspective, even though he's been good. But there's 100 other people that you could have listed there. How on earth, other than the fact that you just don't like him as much, does the team that smokes the other team rank lower with the same record on the power ranking? How is that possible? I don't like to cry conspiracy. I don't like to say the media is out to get fill in the blank. I don't know that's what's going on here, but I don't know what's going on here. And if your argument is going to be, hey, it's one power ranking and one website, who cares? All right, cool. But that could be your argument about anything we discuss on Sports Talk Radio. Ultimately, who cares? There's bigger fish to fry. How many of you saw this? What is this? What do we think is going on here? The media criticizes the Dallas Cowboys. They don't get a pass. They're getting excoriated in all these shows right now. But there's this latent benefit of the doubt to be given. If it will be given, there's 2 or 3 franchises that are always going to get it. And it never seems to be the Washington football team. Never, ever, ever. They change the name. They hire new team presidents, new media members. None of it seems to score them any points. How can Dallas be 25 and Washington be 28 when they have the same record? Washington is above them in the standings. And oh, by the way, they just beat them to death on the football field. How can that be? If you want to chime in on that, 800-636-1067, 800-636-1067 is the phone number. You can check out the power ranking on Facebook.com/CDBTW. Take a couple of your calls next on The Fan. I get steamed up for the Halloween rendition of Ska Wednesday. Pretty great stuff. CDBTW 106.7 The Fan. Thanks for checking out the program today. Appreciate you guys being a part of it. Phone number is 800-636-1067. Ben Volin going to join us in just a couple of few. He is excellent in these matters. And also, who knows what's going on with the New England Patriots? I guess they're not going to bench Cam Newton this week. But I didn't think we'd be having that conversation after the way he looked the first couple of weeks of the season. My goodness gracious, could this team potentially be sellers before the trade deadline? Oof. Oof. Boy, did we go back and forth on whether or not it was a good idea to sign Cam Newton. Remember when Dwayne Haskins was getting benched and we were just going crazy saying, well, if you're just going to bench him, why don't you sign Cam Newton? And then Cam Newton gets benched for Jarrett Stidham like 2 weeks later. Wow. Wow, indeed. We'll get to all that stuff at the top. If you're just tuning in, if you want to go over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/CDBTW, you can go ahead and check out the power ranking that Bork Cheesner put up there. For some reason, ESPN has the Washington football team multiple spots below Dallas, who they just crushed, who they have the same record as. They're higher in the standings. And the one player they said needs to step up for Washington is Peyton Barber. I just can't explain it. And I was looking to discuss it. Trust me, I don't want to be the guy that's blaming the media for having a bias or blaming the media for hating X, Y, and Z franchise. I just don't think it happens as often as everybody thinks. And I think it's loser speak. But man, I tell you what, as a fan, it's irritating to see that stuff. And I had a bunch of people send it over to me today that were irritated about it as well. Let's go to line 1 and talk to Brian in Northwest D.C. Brian, thanks for the call, buddy.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I was wondering, with the upcoming trade deadline, what are your thoughts about us picking up Marvin Jones in Detroit? The guy's pretty good, averaging 6 touchdowns a season for the last 6 seasons.
Thanks for the call. It's completely off topic, but I don't know. We have to figure out whether or not that we know that they have made one inquisition. We know that they put one offer out there, and if you think they're going to put one offer out there, maybe you think that means they're buyers. Eric Reed, of course, was offered up a spot on the practice squad. They said he told them to pound sand, and then we're back where we are. Very much an Amari Cooper Amari Cooper type capacity and response for his response to this organization when they made their pass. Marvin Jones is fine. Let's shot Marvin in the face. Fine player. If you're talking about bringing him in, I don't know what his contract situation is if you're bringing him in here for just a 1-year rental or whatever that might be. But, it depends on whether or not you believe that they're sellers in Detroit as well. I'm looking at his numbers for this year. He clearly has been, shall we say it, underutilized. 19 catches, 226 yards. I would like for them to have taken a real shot at Allen Robinson. I don't know if he was even available, but, I think you need more than just a Robin for Terry's Batman. I think you need another Batman. I think you need to build your Justice League out there. And we had yesterday on the program, Logan Thomas came on, and hopefully he continues to develop. Maybe by the end of the year, he's that guy. He's in a Travis Kelce type of a vibe here for this organization. I don't know. I don't know if they're in the market for trading for wide receivers. They seem to like to sign them off of other teams' practice squads. Phone number is 800-636-1067 if you'd like to go ahead and give me a shout. Brock just said maybe we could trade for Adrian Peterson and solidify the backfield. Yeah, he seems to be having a productive year. I don't know. If Gibson looks like he did, well, every running back looks really good against the Dallas Cowboys, but if he continues to look like that, you feel a little bit better about it. I just wish they would figure out a way to throw the football to the running backs more. Give them opportunities to make plays as far as the passing game instead of just check downs. Instead of, here you go, 3 yards, you get blown up by a linebacker, 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. I like to move away from that if it's possible. 2 hours in the books. Appreciate you guys. I'll continue to take your calls throughout the course of the show. 800-636-1067. Tommy Loverro joins me at 5 p.m. and Ben Volin is next after an update from Pete Medhurst right here on CDBTW. Scott Wednesday on Chad Dukes versus the world. 2 hours in the books. Appreciate you. Next 2 hours coming up. 2.5, to be honest. And it's a wacky, wicked world that we live in, Jack. And the news comes at you fast. A couple of weeks back, we're screaming and yelling, why didn't Ron Rivera sign Cam Newton if he was going to bench Dwayne Haskins? Then Cam Newton gets benched a couple of weeks later for Jarrett Stidham. How does that happen? try to make heads or tails of it and go around the league. My buddy Ben Volin from the Boston Globe is with us on the Mattress Warehouse Hotline. What's up, Ben? How are you?
Chad, I was just listening to this song. You guys really just get me here.
That's good news.
Very impressive.
Now it's featured in one of my favorite films of all time, of course, Snatch, Guy Ritchie's Snatch, which is a tremendous comedy heist movie, so people should check that out. But it's Scott Wednesday, Ben. You know how we do it on Wednesday here.
I do. You guys, you have the best music of any of the shows that I go on, so I tip my cap to you guys.
I'm going to take that as a compliment, my friend. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We put a lot of effort into it. Clearly, they put a lot of effort into game planning for a football game, and having Jared Stidham come out after Cam Newton gets benched is not what you want. Ben, we've talked about this. There's a lack of weapons there. And all those defensive guys opt out. Like, I get it. But, I mean, it wasn't that long ago. They were about to beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle on that go-ahead touchdown on the goal line. And now that might as well have been last season. What is going on with Cam Newton, and how did we get to this place?
Yeah, it's been, no question, a tale of two seasons for Cam, pre-COVID and post-COVID. And, you know, him coming down with the virus like the day before the Chiefs game a few weeks ago, that really has sent him and the team into a tailspin. They've lost 3 games since then. You know, their practice schedule was all messed up for 2 weeks. They basically didn't meet as a team. And then, to me, the real shocker was last week, because they finally got back to a normal week. They had 3 days of practice. It was as normal as you could be. They got 2 of their offensive linemen back, center David Andrews and left guard Joe Tooney, and Shaq Mason at right guard. So, they're finally healthy on the offensive line, and just what a stinker against the 49ers. Just did not see that coming. And, you said it, they don't have great weapons, maybe among the worst in the NFL, certainly on paper. But, receivers are open. It's not just guys aren't getting separation. Receivers are open. Cam is just, he's been in a fog. He's staring down guys. He's not seeing the field. There's this crazy stat from NFL Next Gen. They do like a spray chart of all his throws. He didn't throw a single pass to the right side against the 49ers, and only 3 passes to the right side against the Broncos. So he's like basically shutting off half the field. And he's not throwing with anticipation. He's not reading the coverage. He's not getting the team into the right play. Cam has just been a mess. And I don't know if, it's just him not having much practice over the last few months. It's certainly not an easy situation for him, being new and, with the team and with the offense, and going through all this stuff with COVID. I don't know what's going on, but he has just not been himself. Maybe teams have figured out that he doesn't have much of a downfield passing game, and they're condensing the field and stuffing the box and taking away the run options. But it's not just Cam doesn't have the weapons. There are guys getting open. It's Cam Newton is not finding them right now.
So if that is the case, because it certainly looks like that, what is the solution? Like, what do we say? What can be done this season? I mean, people are already talking about, should you be buyers? Should you be sellers? Is this guy available? Which players should you move on from the trade deadline? You wrote a piece about it. Do we know that that's the mindset that they are in right now, that they're looking at the season and saying, well, the jig is up. We're going to have to come at them again next year after we have another draft and free agency period?
Well, it's fun. So if they do end up selling, and there are a lot of rumors that they might move on from Stephon Gilmore, a guy who probably has a lot of trade value right now, but I don't think it's dependent on their record. I think regardless of how they finish this year, they're still in rebuilding mode, and they're taking more of a long-term approach to building the team. I mean, even if they go on some run and finish 9-7, like, let's be honest, they're still probably not going anywhere this year. This is still, they're not, I don't think, anywhere near the level of the elite teams in the AFC. So, like, I think back to 2016, the year that they beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl, they traded away Jamie Collins at the deadline. They were sellers. And that was just because they saw the future with the player. They knew they were going to be moving on, and so they, traded him and got something for him instead of waiting, for a compensatory pick. And so I think if they do end up moving Gilmore, it's not really dependent on whether they win or lose on Sunday. I just think it's where they are as a franchise, and they're rebuilding. And you say, what's the fix? I mean, there is no fix. Cam Newton is still the starter. He's still the best quarterback on the team. Jarrett Stidham is clearly not the guy. Belichick has had every opportunity to switch to Stidham, and he won't. So that should tell you everything we need to know about how the Patriots feel about Jarrett Stidham right now. He's just not ready. And this is the lot they've cast themselves. They have, they went cheap at the position at quarterback this year, and you get what you pay for. And I think they have to just ride it out with Cam and hope that he gets better this year. But, I think they're always going to be taking a long-term approach this year, and it's not going to be dependent on whether they win or lose this Sunday.
Wow. This is unprecedented, Ben. This is new territory here. And, I don't got to bring it up. It's not binary. It's not Tom Brady's doing good, Bill Belichick's doing bad. Bill Belichick's got a big bloated entity that he's in charge of. Tom Brady's just got to play quarterback for a really good team. But, you know how sports talk radio is. I'm assuming these conversations you're having up there. What happens if the Patriots are sellers? They start trading pieces off. They miss the playoffs, and we're watching Brady in the NFC Championship game. I mean, what's that conversation going to be like?
Yeah, you can't not think of that. And I'm watching the games the other day, the 4:00 games, and you've got Brady slinging touchdowns in Tampa, and they look great. They're 5-2. They've got a great defense. Now he's got Antonio Brown coming in, so they're starting to get on fire. The Patriots look across the sideline. They got Jimmy Garoppolo leading the Niners up and down the field on them, and then the Patriots are stuck in quarterback purgatory. I mean, how can you not notice that the other day? It's just stark. So, these were the arguments in the sports talk radio we had 3 years ago when they traded Garoppolo. It's like everyone knew you're kind of giving up on the future and you're mortgaging the future for the present. But the Patriots got another Super Bowl win out of it. And they're in an unfortunate position now, and Belichick didn't, really prepare for Brady moving on. They didn't draft another quarterback and start developing him, but they did get another Super Bowl out of the bargain. So, it's like, what's better, the present or the future? And they're paying for it now, and they're welcome to the rest of the NFL, New England Patriots, where you don't know if your quarterback's any good, and you're kind of stuck in quarterback purgatory, and you got to figure it out. And you're lucky to win some games, and you might go 9-7 and sneak into the playoffs. This is the new reality for the Patriots for the time being, but maybe it was worth it because they got a 6th Super Bowl ring out of it.
Maybe it was. You mentioned Antonio Brown. I'd love to ask you, Ben, I don't know what this is the way I characterize it. Whatever the opposite of Baker and Odell Beckham is, which is they've had years, there's no chemistry, people think that he's better off without one of the best wide receivers in the league. Whatever the opposite of that, it's Tom Brady and it's Antonio Brown, where they didn't hardly play together at all, but there's like this instant connection so much so that it's obvious he was down there politicking in Tampa Bay for a guy that has some really serious baggage. Like, this isn't, small stuff that we're talking about that he's still going through here. Now, I'm all for second and third chances, but I mean, you got some of the best pass catchers in the league already on this team. What happened when Antonio Brown was there playing for the Patriots?
If I remember correctly, it's like as soon as he signed here, a woman filed a lawsuit against him alleging rape and sexual harassment and things of that nature. And I don't think it ever got resolved in court. And then there was some other, another reporter found like an artist that claimed that Antonio Brown never paid him, like he stiffed her the bill, and then he sent her some text messages or something, and he just, classic Antonio Brown, just couldn't get out of his own way. And Belichick and Brady wanted to keep him even after all these things started coming out, and Kraft, a deadline was coming to pay Antonio Brown, like a $4 million signing bonus payment. And Kraft said, no, we're gonna release this guy. It's not good for the team here. And so he only played one game, and he did catch a touchdown from Brady. And it's strange that Brady has grown such an affinity for a guy that he doesn't really know that well. But I think what it comes down to is Tom Brady wants to win, and super uber talented receivers like Antonio Brown are not available otherwise. And so if Brady can bring a guy like that in and it can help him win a 7th title, then Brady's going to put up with, whatever character flaws this guy has. Like, it's Brady's just a one-track mind at this point, just wants to win, and Antonio Brown can help him get there. And, you mentioned they do have great receiving options, but like Godwin's now got a broken finger, and Mike Evans, I think, has been a little banged up all year, and he hasn't, really connected with Brady yet. And like Scotty Miller, I think, has had a better connection than Mike Evans has. Gronk is coming on now, but he's still a little old and slow. And I think you can never have enough weapons. So bringing a guy like Antonio Brown in can only help the Bucs, assuming that he's, taking not just too crazy off the field, and you can take his cell phone away from him, which is, that's always the major wild card with Brown, just, keeping him active and on the straight and narrow and all that stuff. So they're taking on some risk there, but, it's all about winning that Super Bowl, and Antonio Brown can, I think, certainly help them.
Yeah, he certainly can. Just if I said yesterday I would drop a contract that said if you tweet once, we're cutting you. Like I don't want to see anywhere social media until summer of next year. But that would just be me. Let me ask you about the game of the week in my mind. The Arizona Cardinals and Russell Wilson, just an unbelievable game. Cardinals are now 5-2. I picked them to win the division at the beginning of the year. I'm feeling better about that, even though I think the Seahawks probably are the better team. Why does Arizona match up so well against Seattle each and every year? And how close is Kyler Murray to becoming what we saw Russell Wilson being on Sunday?
Yeah, that was my reaction watching that game. It's like, you have Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson Jr. out there. It's just like two of the most exciting quarterbacks in the NFL now are like 5'9", 5'10", and just ridiculous athletes who make plays with their feet and can make unbelievable throws. And Murray's not on Wilson's level yet as a passer. And even as a scrambler, I think Sunday was a huge step forward for Murray, because he used to, I know the knock on him is he's taken a lot of sacks his first, year and a half or whatever, and he had 52 dropbacks the other night. He had 48 passes and 4 scrambles, and they didn't sack him and they didn't hit him once. An unbelievable stat. Now, he did take some hits as a ball carrier, but to have 0 quarterback hits and 0 sacks is incredible for the number of times that he was dropping back the other day. And I mean, how good is DeAndre Hopkins? Like, that guy every week is just putting together highlight reel catches, and he makes it look so smooth and so simple. They've got a good thing going on there, and I feel bad for the former Patriot Chandler Jones. I mean, their best defensive player. He went down. I hope that doesn't hurt them in the long run, because I'm impressed that you picked them to win, because to me they're coming out of nowhere a little bit this year. And
really,
a second-year quarterback under Murray, I think we all expected them to take a jump, but I didn't think they'd be 5-2 and competing with the elite teams in the NFC. And we'll see if they can maintain that throughout the season, but. Yeah, they've built it up on both sides of the ball, and to me, it's all about that quarterback. When you've got a dynamic playmaker, obviously he just makes everyone better around you. And again, we'll see how that goes. They have to start playing more of those division games. And you could see all 3 NFC West teams getting wild card spots in the NFC. It's pretty remarkable. All 4 of those teams. That is a loaded division, and they're going to start to cannibalize each other a little bit when they start playing each other. But the Cardinals, I mean, props to you for seeing it. I saw maybe an 8-8 team this year, but I didn't think they would be this good. And Kyler Murray is very impressive.
Yeah, they are, and he's a lot of fun to watch as well. The Todd Gurley play, especially now that we have this Matt Ryan audio of him saying, "Don't score, get down." It seems even more damning. You chronicled here they had a 96.6% chance to win that game with 34 seconds left. I've never, I've watched football my whole life. I've hosted sports talk radio shows for, a long time. I've never seen a team find ways to lose like they are. I mean, they can score points, they can hang with everybody, and then they just yak all over themselves at the end of the game. Is there anything to compare this to, Ben?
It's pretty wild. I'd have to go back and think of just teams that, take the jaws of victory or jaws of, what I'm trying to say. It's a remarkable ability for them to lose games. And there's an analytics website, Edge Sports, and they said that when the Falcons scored that touchdown, their odds of winning actually decreased by 9%. So, that photo of Jamie Collins on the Lions signaling touchdown and Todd Gurley just like laying on the ground dejected as he scores a touchdown is just the most 2020 thing ever. Just like a very bizarre ending, but props to Matt Patricia and the Lions for pulling that win out of their butts. I mean, that's a coach and a team that really badly needed a win like that. And, what can you say? about the Falcons. It's not just Dan Quinn. It's just this whole team. It's been a culture of losing ever since they lost that Super Bowl, and they've just lost so much faith in their ability to execute in the fourth quarter. And they're going to have to get rid of that stench and that feeling of just being a loser and not being able to finish games in the fourth quarter. It's, I'm glad they fired Dan Quinn because it was getting sad. It was getting sad watching it happen every week, and I'm glad they just kind of put him out of his misery and fired him. But it's going to be a long season of losing again in Atlanta.
I would agree. Who do you like in the NFC East? I mean, most people seem to be picking the Eagles, but if you look at the Eagles' schedule, it is more difficult than Washington's, and their defense, I think, is capable, certainly, of keeping them in games in the NFC East. In 7 games, whoever gets to 7 games probably is going to win this thing. What do you think of who ultimately stands on top of this trash heap?
Yeah, I picked the Eagles at the beginning of the season, and I am really hating the Eagles all year long. And, it's like, and every week, too, we pick all the games against the spread, and every week it's like, okay, this is the week that the Eagles snap out of it. And they continue to lay eggs and just Carson Wentz, like, what are you doing on some of these plays, running around like a chicken back there? Washington, I wonder if maybe going to Alex Smith might help Washington. Just having more of a savvy veteran quarterback. I really don't know where he's at with his knee right now, but the Washington has a decent defense and a great defensive line. So I feel like that's a defense that could keep them in some games, and if they could just have some smart game management at their quarterback position, that Washington could steal a few of these wins, and that's a division that. I mean, it's not going to be the Giants, and I don't see the Cowboys having any sort of answer. So it's going to come down to Washington and the Eagles. And I wonder if Alex Smith might ultimately be the better play for them this year. If they find themselves strangely in this NFC East race and they need to pull out a few wins, I think the defense is good enough to keep it close, and maybe Alex Smith can just manage the game a little bit better than Kyle Allen. So I wonder if that's a switch they might want to consider at some point.
I don't know. If he shows the way that he did against the Rams, I don't think Kyle Allen's been the problem thus far. The offense has moved better with him out there. But Florio says if they switch to Alex Smith, he thinks they win the division. So I don't know. If you get Alex Smith like when he was 6-3 before he got hurt, maybe. But man, they didn't even throw anything past the line of scrimmage when he was out there against the Rams. It was tough to watch.
Yeah, but wasn't he a replacement that game?
Yeah.
So it's not like they built the game plan around Alex Smith. So I wonder, you give him a week of practice with the ones, you build the game plan around him. Now, look, his leg is still probably not correct, and he's definitely not the same mobile quarterback. And he probably is going to have to change his style of play a little bit. But I wonder, and you're probably right. I mean, I haven't watched Washington as much as you have, and it's probably not the quarterback, but ultimately, give me the guy who's produced and has a body of work like Alex Smith. Kyle Allen shows some promise, but I don't know what his ceiling is. Whereas Alex Smith has definitely been there and done that. So, the coaches know his health better than we do. But I wonder if a few more games down the road and maybe defenses. Let's see if they figure out Kyle Allen a little bit. I wonder if Alex Smith might be the answer for this team.
Tab Ben Volin, you can follow him on Twitter and, of course, Boston Globe, the bostonglobe.com for all of his works. Always appreciate talking shop with you, my friend. Thank you very much for the time today.
All right, Chad. Always appreciate you, buddy.
Of course, Ben Volin, the great Ben Volin, I dare say, from the Boston Globe. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. You're listening to CDW. Chad Dukes versus the world on 1067. The Fan. It's Ska Wednesday. That's what it is. 800-636-1067 if you want to get a hold of your pal. At Chad Dukes on Twitter. Surprised how many people have brought that up on the show. Ben Volin being the latest. Of course, Florio's been beating that drum for a while now. Put Alex Smith in, you win the division. Draw up a game plan for Alex Smith. I don't know. The sample size that we have from that Los Angeles Rams game is damning. Now, he's coming in relief without a game plan. It was terrible weather that day. You're playing Aaron Donald, who's the best defensive player in the league. So I don't think it's fair to judge him on that. I wonder If that were a call that you could make right now, you say, enough of this Kyle Allen experiment. Let's go ahead and boot up Alex Smith. He had this team on the way to winning a division. Let's give him the opportunity here. I wonder how many people would make that call, and they think that that would be the difference in whether or not this team has success. That's beyond my control. For me, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it, especially not after the performances in the past couple of games. 280 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Giants and 194 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. I think Kyle Allen actually played pretty well in both of those games. Now, is he going to be the quarterback of the future for this team? No. But neither is Alex Smith. The question would be, which one of these guys, if you're banking on this year and winning the division this year, and that's where you're pushing your chips right now, get to 7 wins, and that's all it means. We got to get 5 more wins out of the next few weeks. I don't think Ron Rivera's even considering it, but it is interesting to throw out there when more and more guys that analyze football for a living professionally seem to be suggesting that on these very radio waves. So I would take a couple calls on that at 800-636-1067, 800-636-1067. Not a conversation I thought I was going to end up having today. But, if you could flip the switch, flip the depth chart, and put Alex in as your starter, Kyle Allen's your backup, as I think he's going to ultimately be for this team once they get the quarterbacking situation under control. Would you make that call? Is that something you'd like to see? Clearly, physically, he can take the beating. He was carrying Aaron Donald around on his back like Luke Skywalker did to Yoda. But small sample size, looked atrocious. People are still going to have concerns about that leg. It's probably a risk either way. Your reaction to that? Ben Volin being the latest, after Florio has said that a couple of times on this program. I'd like that on the AAA Always On Call listener lines. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. 800-636-1067. Take your phone calls on that next after the updated CDBW. Switch to Alex Smith, which is interesting considering the last time we saw Alex Smith against the Los Angeles Rams. It wasn't pretty. Now, credit to him. He's able to go out there and to stay healthy and to take the hits and prove to everybody that he physically can play this game. It's an unbelievable comeback. You should carve a statue to that guy. I'm a big fan. But I don't personally think he's going to be more effective in this offense than what we've seen from Kyle Allen. And maybe people aren't watching Kyle Allen. They're just looking at the stats and knowing his reputation. I actually think that he's been good enough in most of these games to lead them to victory. Not even lead them to victory, to maintain a victory. There's been other things, coaching decisions, execution, defense, special teams, missing field goals. I mean, there's so many X factors. I don't think Kyle Allen's a big problem. If you're making a top 5 list, I don't know that he'd be on it right now. But Florio said this on the show as well. I think it's worth a conversation. I was not expecting to have it today because I wasn't expecting Volin to say that. But he's a smart dude, and he covers this league. Let's go to line 4. Talk to John in Bethesda. John, thank you for the call. You're on the Fan.
Hey, Chad. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Maybe that'll end up being the case. Maybe the defenses will figure Kyle Allen out down the road like they did in Carolina, in which case it'll be great to have Alex there to step in, a veteran. He can just walk right in. But for now, in this weird, everything is short-term, everything is temporary season, to me, you just ride the hot hand and just go with it until it proves otherwise. I like what Kyle Allen's bringing to the field. He's got speed. He's got good reaction. Definitely knows the offense. I think it's a little risky to interrupt that success.
I don't know how much success we're interrupting here, but yeah, certainly coming off this victory over the Dallas Cowboys, I wouldn't do it. I just think that Alex Smith has played at a level that Kyle Allen never has. We have to take that into account. Alex Smith is also... he's going to take care of the football. I think that I would feel comfortable attempting it. And thanks for the call, bud. I appreciate it. If the defense was playing a little bit better, if we were getting 3 to 5 sacks every single game, and I know you look at some of these metrics, against the pass, they're very strong, and some of these metrics are the best in the league. But if they were scoring, if they were turning it over, if we're looking at, Ravens defense, Titans defense, Steelers defense from years ago, be like, all right, we just don't turn the ball over, run the football, and then we'll be able to. They're not that dominant. They're not that effective of a unit. And so I think you're going to need a little bit more sizzle out of the quarterbacking position every once in a while. One of these throws up top to Logan Thomas or Terry. We've seen a couple of the Cam Sims over the past few weeks. I don't know if Alex has those in his arsenal right now. 800-636-1067 is the phone number on the AAA Always On Call listener line. Let's go to line 5 and talk to Tim in College Park. What's up, Tim?
Hey, what's up, Dukes? I just wanted to state that I definitely, I listen to your show a lot, and 1067. And Brian Baldinger was on about maybe a month ago, and he stated that he thought Alex Smith was the best quarterback in training camp when he was there. And I really, respect his opinion. But I just think when it comes to the system and Kyle Allen having come with Ron Rivera to our team, I just think it makes sense to keep him in that system just due to the fact that the coaching staff, Kyle Allen, they all seem to have a groove going on right now. We won't say it's success. But I wouldn't mind to see Alex Smith in some garbage time, similar to like the Dallas game. Maybe they could have put him in the last quarter or something, just to see what he looks like, to see what he has left.
Well, I don't know what garbage time, garbage time generally is if you're getting blown out or you're blowing someone else out. So I don't know if that's something you want to do to build them up. I don't know. I would also think that it would be something that I would be very hesitant to do, to go away from a quarterback that the offensive coordinator and coach are familiar with in this system and go to another one that isn't. Because quite frankly, that didn't work out too well the first time they did that with Dwayne Haskins. Now, Alex Smith is not Dwayne Haskins, and he has proven himself in several different systems. He's gone to the playoffs. I mean, his accolades speak for themselves. He's played in one of the greatest offenses that the modern NFL has ever seen, and what Andy Reid is doing in Kansas City. So, I don't know. Are you talking about a slow wind-up? We're already 7 weeks into the season. I don't know how much could be gained and garnered from that at this point. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. Let's go to line 1, talk to Thom in Reston. Thom, thanks for the call, buddy. You're on the fan.
Hey, Chad. Yeah, what I really liked last week was the offensive game plan with how the types of runs that were called and the play action, and I'm fine with last week, but he didn't play bad. I mean, he actually played good as long as he doesn't do turnovers and stuff. It was called very conservatively, but that type of game plan, if you give Alex a good week of ones and get to see what he does with it, I think it's worth a shot. Because first off, I mean, you might want to think about having him around another year as a backup if he keeps on progressing. I mean, he was put in a really, really awful situation to come in that game, in that rain with Donald just like beating on people and stuff. So, I think that's not a good thing to use. But, yeah, I agree. It was an awful performance. It's just that just give him a chance one time, and if it doesn't work out, then you know for sure.
Well, I think they know what they have in Alex Smith moving forward. The contract, of course, is going to make it very difficult for them to part company. I think they view Kyle Allen as a solution at backup for a long term moving forward as well. So perhaps this is an investment in that. Do we think the offensive gameplay is going to be much better with Smith out there? Or do we think the defense is dominant enough that really all you need is a caretaker that's going to take care of the football? Because that's one thing definitively we know that Smith is going to do better than Kyle Allen, and that is secure the football. Sometimes to his own detriment, not putting balls up and giving your guy an opportunity to go make a play. Eating balls, throwing it out of bounds when potentially you could extend the play. I mean, that's part of Alex Smith's game and part of his makeup. So we know that he'll take care of the ball better, but do we think this team will benefit from that right now or benefit enough from it to win more games? Good calls on this. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. We'll take some more next on CDBTW. A lot of calls on this. Yeah, I was kind of surprised by the conversation as well. Chad Dukes versus the world on 106.7 The Fan. Tommy Loverro will join me in just a few. He's a ne'er-do-well. And Ben Volin basically saying, hey, switch to Alex Smith. You can win the division. Florio said the same thing last week. He said the same thing a couple of times on the show. Get any reactions to that. What about you, Landfill? I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't make the change. I love Alex Smith. He's a handsome man, muscular. And I'm very pleased that he has been able to work as hard as he has and come back from that injury. But am I crazy? I don't think he would be an upgrade over Kyle Allen right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was pretty bad in that Rams game. It's not like this guy was, a particularly high-end quarterback before, he had his leg opened up like it was an avocado.
Jeez. It's been much.
Oh, I mean, that's what happened.
God bless.
So, yeah, I'm not sure that I would go to him.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would either. I don't know if it needed to be put as bluntly as that. Let's go to line 4. Talk to Vaughn in Alexandria. Vaughn, what's up, buddy? Appreciate the call.
Chad, man, I think these people need to be drug tested, Chad. I mean, remember the expectation was him getting up off the field. Once he got sacked, we wanted to know if he could walk again. Heck with a pass. Heck with running the offense. We were concerned with him walking when he got up. Now we're talking about, look, Chad, we just now started to move the offense. We're talking about going back to square zero and to see if Alex can get in and start running this offense when we just now started to get it to, just a point where we can actually move the ball. We're talking about going backwards. Man, I think these people need to be drug tested. I mean, is this Lovecraft country? I don't get it. I mean, what, we going through the time machine? Alex can't play. I mean, the people watch the Rams. He can barely walk. So we talking about putting him in. I'd rather put Dwayne Haskins in than put Alex in. I'm sorry. I think that's insane to go backwards. Appreciate the call, Chad.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Look, I feel this. If you're basing it off of the way he looked in Los Angeles, but if you're basing the way the entire offense looked against the Los Angeles Rams, I mean, it was not a pretty picture. Now, that being said, and Volin brought this up, maybe he does need to be drug tested, sir. I don't know. I'm not casting any aspersions on what he does in his recreational time. But he didn't have a game plan. He's being inserted in there. He didn't think he was going to play. And, he's going out there. He doesn't know the offense as well. He's got to be nervous. The family's in the stands. I don't think I think we would see a better performance. I think Alex Smith could have beaten the Dallas Cowboys this past weekend. Let me put it that way. Now, if the argument is I'd rather see Dwayne Haskins back out there, I don't know. With Smith, at least you're saying this guy's been to the playoffs. He knows the ropes. He's going to take care of the football, and we can win the division. And Dwayne Haskins is still very much a work in project. Now, whether or not he actually, in progress, rather, and whether or not that pays dividends at some point for this franchise or another, I don't know. But now is not the time for that if you think you're competing for a division. But yeah, I think you're right to also question any type of proposition that you make a quarterback change right now for this team. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. Let's go to line 2 and talk to Dan in Lanham. What's up, Dan?
Hey, thanks for taking the call.
Sure.
So pretty much my take on it is I've been an Alex fan since he was in KC, and I kind of think, there's no way he's probably 100% back, but even if he's 60% of the player he was, I think he can at least maintain us where we are and possibly even heighten us, and I don't think we'll go backwards by putting him in. And I think it would make for a great story if Alex Smith wins the division and then becomes player comeback of the year. I think it would just make for a great story. We need some positivity, and I think it would just be really good for the organization.
Well, the story would be unbelievable. Thank you for the call. They'd make a movie out of it. They'd make a miniseries out of it. You're right. But it'd be an unbelievable story if I ran out the front door right now and jogged to Kansas. That would be an unbelievable story. Local obese man jogs to Kansas without dying. Yeah, that probably would make a headline. It ain't going to happen. So it would be wonderful if Alex Smith led this team to the postseason. I think the odds probably would not be in their favor for that to take place. The odds are not in their favor right now. I'm having analyst after analyst after analyst come on the show and pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East. 800-636-1067 is the phone number. Surprised at how many people were fired up for that conversation. Yeah, it kind of jumped out of the bushes on us, didn't it? It came swinging in on a vine. I continue to have people that I trust their opinion, come on the show and say, hey, if they go with Alex Smith, I think they can win the division. That is an interesting turn of events. The 2020 model year end, ticking away. Inventory reduction. They need to get it done at Lindsay Ford. LindsayFord.com. They got superb deals on the last of the 2020s. You can save up to $15,000 off Ford's top-selling F-Series pickup trucks right now. They got 200 on the lot. You want an Escape? You want an Explorer? Expedition Renter is coming now. Right now, up to $12,000 off MSRP. That is crazy. And throw on top of that, 0% for 72 months, no payments for 90 days, and up to 130% of the Kelley Blue Book value for your trade-in vehicle. Whoa! Fallen leaves, that means fallen prices. Time for you to fall in love with Lindsay. Lindsay Ford, saving you more. Go talk to my girl, Sarah Bird. Bought 3 automobiles from her over the years. Bought an F-150. Bought a Ford Edge for my wife. She loves it. I got a Explorer ST for myself. Thing is fast, Jack. Check them out. You can test drive them. Pick one out beforehand. LindsayFord.com. You know Big Shooter loves it at Lindsay, and you'll love it at Lindsay, too.
Making his way to the squared circle, accompanied by his manager, Big Huge fighting out of the Frederick Fortress of Solitude by way of New York City and thousands of press boxes. He's the Geeter with the heater, the badass with the press pass. Half man, half amazing. Ask him for the story about Craig Heist at spring training. He's top-notch and full of scotch. All real, no hype. He drank all of Jamaica's red stripe. A prince, a pleasure, a joy. Mama Loverro's baby boy, Tommy. I don't do hot takes. Loverro.
Yes, certainly do. Tommy Loverro on the line. How bad can it possibly be? It might be bad. You never know. But it couldn't be all bad. Not if it's that gentleman, that ne'er-do-well, the icon, the Ayatollah of rock and roller. That's what I call him around the hallways at the radio station. Mr. Thom Loverro is with us on Chad Dukes versus the World. Columnist for the Washington Times, author, radio host, podcast host, all of it. And he's with me now on the Mattress Warehouse hotline. Tommy, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, boss, you sound like you're in a good mood today.
Oh, how could you not be, Tommy? The sun is shining. You get to speak on the radio for a living. I'm going to have some, I think I'm going to have a large sandwich as soon as the show has a conclusion here. Watch some Halloween movies tonight. The world is my oyster, my friend.
Well, this is your time of year, right? Halloween?
Oh, I love it. The Halloween to Christmas conduit. I will take it over summer or spring or anything you throw at me. I love it all. I love giving out the candy. I love the movies. I love the Thanksgiving, of course, the gorging, I like the lights, the music, and it's just the best. I love it. And for you, it's your time of the year because the facade of a baseball season has finally drawn to a conclusion. Now, you have been quite critical over the duration, Mr. Loverro, of whatever the 60-game plus a postseason sprint was for baseball. Do you feel the same way at the conclusion of the World Series?
Well, I tell you, I was glad that Justin Turner ran out there on the field, COVID positive test and all, and joined his teammates to celebrate. Because if nothing else, it served as a brief moment to break the Stockholm Syndrome and remind everybody as to what we were watching. And what we were watching was not really a World Series. I mean, it was a tournament. It was a tournament after spring training.
Okay, but do you think that it is fitting that after the Dodgers had been involved in 2 different World Series with 2 different teams accused of sign stealing and chicanery, that they were the ones to win this tournament as you described it?
No, I think it would have been perfectly poetic if the Astros had managed to win the World Series this year. I think that would have been a good way to cap what we saw this year. Look, I was wrong. I thought that I've been wrong about basketball, hockey, and baseball, and I'll probably be wrong about the NFL as to finishing the seasons in terms of COVID. But like I said before,
Clayton Kershaw is getting kudos for how well he pitched in the World Series. Well, what we know now is Clayton Kershaw is a good postseason pitcher when he's had 10 regular season starts. In other words, when you're pitching or when you're playing in October in a regular season, you played 162 regular season games. You are not the same hitter. You are not the same ball player, not the same pitcher as if you played 60 games. Okay, so this is not what we have typically seen. They played the hand they were dealt. I've got nothing against the Dodgers or any, the players involved, and baseball made the most of, a money grab, and there's nothing wrong with a money grab. People should be grabbing money everywhere they can these days. But let's just be realistic. It's not what Max Scherzer did, okay? In the 7th game of the World Series last year, after Max Scherzer went through a whole season to get to that point, a whole 162-game season. That's all. So in a way, I was glad that Turner did that because it reminded everybody, well, this was a lot of fun. And it was fun. I watched the World Series and I enjoyed it. But let's not forget that this is an interim championship like they give out in boxing.
All right, so you mentioned the Justin Turner celebration. It's completely obfuscated the World Series itself. The sequence of there's a test, the results are fudged, we run it back through in the second ending, it pops positive, we drag his ass off for the last couple of innings. He stays in the clubhouse, comes out, snaps a picture, celebrates with some of his teammates, all of which who of course had been exposed to him the entire time because he had taken that test earlier in the week, but it's still a bad look, and we know with all the coaches in the NFL, optics are very important to this league. As just a sequence of events, Tommy, I mean, a guy wants to celebrate with his team when he wins the World Series. I totally get it. It's inappropriate. People have sacrificed weddings and funerals. I totally get that argument, too. The story seems to be very emblematic of the year we've had. What were you processing? How did you process that sequence of events from Turner?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's emblematic of what we've been dealing with. We haven't been asked to sacrifice. Sacrifice has come because of circumstances. But to be honest with you, and I hate to go down this road, there hasn't been any rallying cry across the country about fighting COVID. This has been a divisive fight, not a unifying fight, not a rallying fight. So it's perfectly understandable why Justin Turner would break ranks and do that because there hasn't been any sense that it's us against this disease right now. For some of us it has been, and for others it hasn't been. So, like I said, you're right. It's emblematic of what we're going through in a society right now and what we're going to continue to go through for the foreseeable future as, cases and hospital rates go up.
Okay. I think that there's a difficult part of all of this where it's like, well, how did he get let out onto the field? Like, if you're there with people that are around him and around the team, it's like, well, who's going to jump on top of him and say you can't go take a picture? It seems to me that it's quite the onion, as far as how you want to discuss this. At the end of the day, you're right. It's not just about his teammates. It's about the family members, everybody that's out there on the field. And I understand that, but I wonder also how much of it is, hey, you can't be flagrant. Like, you can't flaunt your disdain for these rules, or if you don't believe the same things about what this virus is doing to us as other people do, you got to kind of be a unified front if you're baseball. And even in celebrating a World Series, this was a giant crack in that veneer.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of guys, big guys in suits, ex-FBI agents, people who have probably killed somebody along the way in their career at an event like this, who can stop people from going out on the field. Trust, they'd stop you and me. They have no problem doing that.
No, they wouldn't.
So, while it would have been an uncomfortable situation, they have the security to stop something like this.
Now, let's get to your piece on what you wrote about the meaning, or extrapolating a meaning from the Dallas win and how it could kind of go either way here. You got to say, as far as Tommy, you got to beat the teams in front of you. We know all the cliches, but if you want to be a good team, the first way you start it is A, you win at home, and B, if there's a bad team coming to town, you throttle them. And that's what Washington did. I don't know exactly what it means, but you got to have the 6 sacks. Like, this is the defense that we thought we were going to see. They didn't show up against the Giants the way they needed to. The only other time they'd really shown up this way was the Philadelphia Eagles. How do you not get yourself carried away here if you're a supporter of the team, but how do you also acknowledge the division's absolutely horrific? Their schedule's a little bit easier than their contemporaries, and there might be some opportunity here.
Well, you're spot on again. You can't assign anything to this other than just the moment of a win over a team that you hate, in particular, the Dallas Cowboys. That's what I talk about, tunnel vision. I mean, you can't open your eyes and look for something beyond the moment of the win. It was a great win, 25-3. They humiliated the Cowboys, and that's never a bad day if you're a Washington football fan. And even if you will want to project beyond, this game and somehow a 5-11 division-winning team, what's that going to mean? I mean, in the long run, and this team is so far away from being good. This team does not have their quarterback. They don't have their quarterback, and when you don't have your quarterback, you are a long way from being from that word success that people like to use. I heard the discussion about Kyle Allen and Alex Smith. One thing that Kyle Allen does for this offense that Alex Smith will never do is he gives it mobility. You need a mobile quarterback back there with this offensive line. It's not that good. So I don't see them making any change there. I thought the offense has played the best it has with Kyle Allen, who is a turnover machine. But you need somebody with mobility back there. Alex Smith, that's not going to happen. I thought that all things being equal, I said before the season started that Alex Smith would be named the starter, because in practice he will do all the things that coaches love. He will do all the things that coaches fall. He'll run the offense exactly the way that Ron Rivera would want it run. He has the experience to be able to practice the way an NFL veteran practices. But, once he faces a pass rush of any note, it's going to be cringeworthy, I think. So I don't see them making a change, and I don't see Kyle Allen as the quarterback moving forward, other than just to get through this year. But, as great as the defense seems to be, as talented as they seem to be, they don't have a quarterback. We've seen in Jacksonville and Buffalo great defenses who wound up, 5-11, 6-10, because they didn't have a quarterback. This team still has no idea who their quarterback of the future is.
I would agree, but that doesn't mean, Tommy, that they can't find enough success to win this division this year. And that seems to be a sticking point with people that analyze this team, is whether or not that's worth anything to get some of these young players exposure. First of all, I think you still have a culture being built here by Ron Rivera. And if you can go out there to your guys and say, look, we didn't have our quarterback, we're not very good, we got a home playoff game, I think that has value. But many people have come on this show and say it does not. It's about the draft pick. You should be looking towards the future. Where do you come down on that particular argument?
Well, I'm not a huge believer in tanking, as the story goes, but I'm not a huge believer in the value of a warped playoff appearance. I mean, like I said in the column, it's like you're trapped in a tunnel and you hear the faint sound of somebody trying to dig you out. That's what this win was over Dallas, nothing more. I mean, have those accidental playoff years in the past led to anything? No, They haven't. So I don't put much stock in a 6-10 division title and a home playoff game in terms of changing the culture. Most of the guys on this offense, if this team does manage to progress and change, are not going to be there for that change. There's a handful of guys. Terry McLaurin, terrific player. It was great to hear that post-game speech that he gave. Antonio Gibson looks like a real find, and maybe Logan Thomas as well. Other than that, I mean, there's nobody who's going to be there for the glory days if they ever come.
Yeah. I was surprised when Volin and Florio, for that matter, came on and said they thought that Alex Smith would be the better choice this year to get them into the postseason. Because, look, I don't want to take one half of football where he was thrown into the mix. Probably, he was not prepared the way that he should be because he wasn't game planning for that way the whole year. And then, it's horrible weather and Aaron Donald is just decimating your offensive line. I certainly don't want to look at that and say, well, he can't play, so we can't put him back out there. But I'm with you. I mean, Allen can move around. You're going to have that with as terrible as this offensive line is. He seems to be able to create after the play, sometimes to his detriment. But I'm surprised people coming on this show and saying that would give them a better chance at going to the postseason.
Well, those were guys who weren't looking as closely as Alex Smith's performance a couple of years ago when he was the starter, as a lot of us were. When they were 6-3, in all 6 games, they led right from the start. They took the lead early. In the 3 games that they lost, they were behind early. And they were behind in the 4th game where Alex Smith got hurt. He can't, even at 100%, 3 broken leg Alex Smith. He couldn't bring this team from behind. So that's going to be a problem since this team tends to fall behind early. So I don't put plus. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the whole Alex Smith Hallmark card moment. It kind of makes me a little bit cringeworthy, but that's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, I still don't get that, Tommy. Even though that he wants this, I don't like if he was in some money problems or we're looking at like a boxer dragging himself back in the ring because he's bankrupt or whatever. I don't know. If Alex Smith and his family are cool with it, why are you so dead set against him playing football?
Well, because I don't want to see something bad happen to this guy for no reason other than some self-indulgent idea that he has to prove something to somebody. I mean, this whole idea of that one of the parts of the story was he wants to show his kids, what comeback and perseverance is. Well, look, Alex Smith is a stand-up guy. I'm sure his kids are well-versed in perseverance and all the values that they need to be already. That his father doesn't need to put himself at risk in order for them to learn those at this point. But I know I'm in the minority, and, I wish nothing for the best for Alex Smith. Now, I hope he stays 100% healthy, and I hope I'm wrong about the idea that he puts himself at risk, but he does. And I don't think it's going to happen because, again, they need a mobile quarterback, and Kyle Smith is going to be the quarterback moving forward.
I just love that in the same segment you've murdered Clayton Kershaw and Alex Smith, who might be 2 of the biggest baby faces in all of sports right now.
Well, you see, this is part of what I'm going through right now. This is a good time for you, Halloween. For me, it's a traumatic time.
Why is that?
Well, because I suffered a childhood trauma in Halloween.
No, I had no idea.
I'm sure I've told you this.
No, I had no idea.
Yeah. When I was a kid, maybe 8 years old, growing up on the mean streets of Brooklyn, New York,
sure,
I was beaten and robbed of my Halloween stuff by a bunch of guys on the street.
Beaten and robbed?
Beaten and robbed. You see, in Brooklyn, for one thing, in Brooklyn back then, not only did you get candy, but you got money. People would put money in your bag. So you could come away with $15, $20 at the end of a good Halloween night, plus the candy.
But not Tommy
And I was walking home by myself. I'm about 8 years old. It's dark. I go to turn the corner, and 3 guys are walking towards me, and before I know it, I'm on the ground getting stomped and punched, and they're trying to grab my bag and tear it away from me, and they take my bag and they run away. That's my Halloween, buddy.
Maybe that's where just the effervescent Niagara Falls-like stream of cynicism that we always hear from you, maybe those were the headwaters, Tommy, that very night.
That may have been it. I think you're onto something else here. I think that's where my myopic view of the world began. I think I'm going to turn a corner and get beaten up and have my Halloween food bounty taken away from me.
Doesn't like Clayton Kershaw, the World Series, Halloween, or Alex Smith. I'm just making a checklist. I got a very long checklist here that I'm updating every time you come on the program. It is at Thom Loverro, ThomLoverro.com, and read him in the Washington Times. Tommy, thanks so much, buddy. Have a great week.
Thank you, boss.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. You took a run at some beloved sports figures that segment, I'll tell you what. All right, 800-636-1067 is the phone number. It's Chad Dukes versus the world. Scott Wednesday on Chad Dukes versus the world. Thanks for checking out the program today, friendos. I'm your host, Big Shooter. Tweet me at Chad Dukes, taking up until 6:30. Reese Waters and overtime takes place after that. Live and local, right here on 106.7 The Fan. Speaking of local, you know him from Washington Game Day Uncensored Sundays on 106.7 The Fan. Of course, anchoring every day as well. The great Earl Forcey is with us via the magic of the Comrex ISDN line, whichever it is combination. Earl, what's going on, buddy? How are you? Dude, I cannot hear Earl. Can he hear me? That's the... Well, let's just get that little technology hiccup. Go ahead and get that taken care of. We got 2 landfill, too. You can get them on the blower if you want. It's fine. It's no big deal. Phone. Oh, he is? Earl, you there, buddy?
Yeah, technology, Chad. What are you going to do?
There he is.
I've got everybody in the house using internet, streaming it. It's daytime.
It's daytime.
When I'm by myself on the weekend, in the morning, on Sunday, I can handle it. But we're here. I was saying, I feel this is big. It's kind of like Macho Man and Hogan when they got together. I'm
the
pumped
Mega
up
Powers
the show.
Absolutely. Just dominating the tag team circuit. And, of course, as you know, Earl, big fan of yours. Love listening to you talk football here on The Fan on the weekends. It's a lot of fun. And I don't know. You've been doing it for a while. I haven't done a lot of Victory Mondays after beating the Dallas Cowboys. And I was very cynical this past week and saying, hey, the rivalry is dead. None of this means anything. But I got to walk some of that back. It felt pretty damn good on Monday just to talk about beating Dallas.
See, you should have been listening on Sunday, countdown to kickoff, because that's all I did and played pass highlights. Look, and I understand, Chad, for the fan base that has been beaten up over the last 3 decades since his team was any good. The last time they won a Super Bowl, I can certainly understand it. But there's a lot of us around that do remember the good days. And look, I'm a Rivera fan, and I know he's been getting beat up and all this mixed messaging. I think the right guy's in place, and I think you're starting to see signs of it the last couple of weeks with them. So, yeah, it was fun. It was great to demolish Dallas. And see what's going on there, right? I mean, that may have been the win that leads to the implosion of the Dallas Cowboys. They're in collapse right now. It's great.
It really is. And to be the instrument of that collapse. Well, let's start there, Earl. What do you do? I mean, you gave 5 years, $6 million a year to Mike McCarthy. I mean, it is clear it ain't working. He's mutinied a team in record time, but I guarantee because Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones, they're going to stick around and try to make this work. I don't care how many injuries they have. They have too much talent to be as absolutely atrocious as they are.
And he's feeling the heat, Chad. He got terse with our friend Sean Sharif down there from our Dallas sister station yesterday. Jerry Jones is feeling it. But he said also, I have my guy. I mean, that was I got my guy. Well, good luck with it, because I think that was perceived, and, from the outside looking in, is probably a good hire for them. And, Jason Garrett kind of, I think the perception of him was kind of what he was, kind of the Dallas version of Jay Gruden, if that's the best way to put it. But the one thing that Jason Garrett had there was always had the locker room. The players loved playing for him. I think you've even seen how tough it was for Jerry Jones to get rid of him. It was kind of like a member of the family. But yeah, they may have the wrong guy. And you know what happens when that happens in an organization? It leads to a complete and utter collapse. And you either stick with them and it doesn't get any better, or you make a quick move and have a quick hook. And I don't know what Jerry does on this, because here's the other thing, Chad, and they've got now an injured quarterback in Dak Prescott, who's still going to have to be one of the highest paid players in the NFL when he comes back if you want to keep him. And the dirty little secret about the Dallas Cowboys and the billionaire owner down there with the $4 billion stadium and the $1 billion practice facility is, for the most part, he doesn't pay players. Certainly doesn't pay his own players. They lost one of their defensive backs, and we knew that defense was not going to be as good this year, and they're even worse than expected. The guys he's paid are Amari Cooper and Zeke Elliott. How's that working out? He doesn't pay the quarterback, and now they're in a bind because I don't care what kind of injury Dak Prescott's coming off of. He's going to get paid by somebody, and they have to pay him franchise money. We know how that goes. Second-year franchise money if they want to guarantee to keep him next year. So they're a mess. I think the best thing to say is they are a mess. Yeah. And if you're not a Cowboys fan, it's not a bad thing.
Earl, the notion that this team is, that the Philadelphia Eagles are now the favorite to win the division, I get that. People are, I think, in a little bit of denial about how bad Philadelphia has been, and they needed every ounce to roar back against a terrible Giants team. They're going to get a couple of pieces back. I understand that, but Sean Jackson's out for the season. They still got to play 5 really tough games in a row, and Washington already has one in hand over them, and it probably was most likely is going to come down to Week 17. Are they your favorites to win the NFC East right now, Philadelphia?
They'd have to be, but this team here, Chad, I don't know. And talking about Washington, Philadelphia is kind of what they are. And I thought Michael Irvin had something interesting to say. And, on Countdown to Kickoff, I replay a lot of this stuff from the week, a lot of your great interviews when Loverro comes on and Theismann. Michael Irvin was on with Grant and Danny talking about the rivalry, the Cowboys-Washington rivalry last week. And he had something interesting to say when he was asked about the division. And he said, yeah, I think Philadelphia, and his point was the Cowboys are kind of what they are. They don't have the quarterback anymore. It's not getting any better. Philadelphia probably has guys coming back, you would think, but we'll see about that because, there's a lot of guys that could be lost in the meantime for them. What he said about Washington, he said, I think you guys actually are in pretty good shape because you know what? You're a young team. You're still learning, new coaching staff. You're going to get better. And the question is, how good can this group be with the limitations in Washington's case? With the limitations at quarterback, kind of a caretaker in essence in Kyle Allen at quarterback. But we know the defense is good. And weren't we sitting here? I was able to do, and I joined, I'm going to shameless plug, Scott Abraham on ABC 7 24/7 last night, Sports Talk. And I was discussing this, that the last couple of weeks of my show, I've been touting the Washington defense, that a lot of people were beating up on them through some of these bad losses, and I could understand that. But if you looked at the numbers, they were pretty good, and they have been good for a couple of weeks. I was talking about this all Sunday leading up to the Dallas game, and now look at the statistics, Week 7. Didn't we sit here in the summer leading up to the season say, boy, now Jack Del Rio's there and Ron Rivera, they've got some pieces. If they could only be a top 10 defense, maybe they're good enough to be a top 5 defense. Do you know what they are right now? A top 5 defense in the NFL. Washington has the number 4 defense statistically, yards per game in the NFL. They are the number 1 pass defense in the NFL, which maybe it doesn't fit the eye test that we're all seeing week to week, but that's a good thing to build on. If the offense is coming around, if there's stability now, if they can start doing the things they did in the second half against the Giants and the entire game against the Dallas Cowboys, they could kind of hang in this thing, Chad. And like you said, kind of what's in their back pocket is the win over Philadelphia and that Week 17 game against Philadelphia. You just never know. And I think with what's going on in Dallas, and probably the Giants are what they are, that's the team to beat. And just the question is, how many wins is it going to take to beat them at the end of the year?
Earl, I had, I don't know if you heard earlier today, but Ben Volin and Mike Florio have both come on my show and said if the Washington football team made the switch to Alex Smith, I think they would win the division, which I found to be rather shocking. Now, I don't know if either of those guys are watching the team as close as we are, but I think Kyle Allen has a reputation. I think people know he turns the ball over and he plays for Washington, so they're bad. I actually don't think Kyle Allen's played that poorly. I thought he played pretty well past couple of weeks, well enough to probably get a victory if there was some different play calling and things fell into place. What do you think of that reaction from two, well-known national guys that talk football for a living saying something like that?
I think on the outside looking in, Chad, that's probably the perspective. I listen to him too. Florio's on with you every week. He's been touting this for 3 or 4 weeks now, that if they made the move to Alex Smith, they could win that division. He ultimately may be right. And you know what, Chad? This may ultimately be what ends up happening. What I think occurred is having to throw Alex Smith into the fire in that Rams game. If it were me and our Ron Rivera, Scott Turner looking at that, I think you saw that maybe Alex Smith was healthy enough to play football again in the NFL, but he wasn't ready to play quarterback again in the NFL. And now the question is he ever going to be? It was awful when he came in. And, you can't go back to that. But if what we were hearing from Rivera during the Haskins benching and this whole, and JP was touting this with you, JP Finley, the bridge to Alex Smith, I think that was maybe the ultimate plan here, to hang in it, get a couple of wins with a guy that knows what he's doing, and when Alex Smith is ready and we think he is to play, that's going to be the guy that maybe we make the push with. Ultimately, maybe, Chad, that is the case, but I was not impressed, to say the least, with what I saw out of Alex Smith and his ability to play at a high level in the NFL. And who knows? We don't know what's going through their minds in Ashburn. Maybe they saw that and you have to think twice, right? Even if that was your plan, that, man, can we really go to Alex Smith at any point? I don't know if that's actually going to be the case, but I think that was kind of the plan going all along. And guess what? Pushes that back. If they can win some games, a switch is not going to be made. And they've got winnable games against the Giants coming up, against Detroit, and against Cincinnati, and then Thanksgiving Day. They have 4 games here that if you are Kyle Allen, you can hold off Alex Smith by performing and winning games.
At winnable games, and they also can gain some ground. I don't know if they need to gain any ground on the Philadelphia Eagles, but they can put some distance in between them too. They've already gotten some of these more difficult matchups, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cleveland Browns, out of the way, and there's still a murderer's row waiting there for the Philadelphia Eagles. It is at Earl Forcey. You can go ahead and find him there. Of course, host of Sunday's Countdown to Kickoff right here on 106.7 The Fan. Earl, appreciate you checking in, buddy. Thanks so much. Love talking football with you.
Chad, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I have to mention we have the Rooster on every Sunday a couple of times, and because it was Dallas week, I brought up the fact that they'd have a rematch on Thanksgiving Day, and of course it led to a whole conversation of what an inconvenience it's going to be for the Rooster to work on Thanksgiving Day.
I can't imagine that happened. This is unprecedented
Shocking,
news.
Just unbelievable.
Thank you, Earl. I appreciate it, bud.
All right, Chad. Take care.
I hear him on the weekend. I hear a Rooster on with Earl. I hear a Rooster on with JP and Logan. And it's just every single time. You've heard it, Landfill. It's like he hits Freebird on with Earl, and like he's bitching about the cost of food. He hits Simple Man on with Logan and JP, where he's sitting there talking about how difficult it was from the park at the stadium. I mean, he just cannot help himself.
All these dummies playing on Thanksgiving. It's messing with my plans.
Oh, what does he need to do, by the way? Who is he covering the team for Thanksgiving?
It's just so frustrating.
Is it SI? I mean, who's he going there for?
There's football on Thanksgiving. It's one of the best things that happens all year, and Chris Russell finds a way to make it about himself and be miserable about it.
He hates it. He hates it so much. Oh, that's funny. Well, thank you to Earl for coming on the program. Greatly appreciate him. Am I doing Santini's here, Landfill? I just saw that. I could do Santini's if you like. I got no problem with that. Love me some Santini's. They got the best products that you can find, Jack. Even if it costs them a little bit more, they don't care. That's why it's so good. They realize they're investing in themselves. They're investing in a good product, so they get that word of mouth Santini's gets. Ask anybody about their sandwiches. They're using the best meats, the best chicken, fruits and vegetables delivered fresh every day. Grande cheese, best cheese on the market. A lot of restaurants won't pay for it. Not Santini's. They haven't raised their prices in years. Even though the cost of goods has gone up for them, their prices stay the same because of that. They want you to have a good value. They want you to feel good about coming in there and getting some repeat business. The bread is baked fresh every day. They got beer and wine. Perfect family environment. If you want to go in and dine in, they got that. Still not comfortable? Do the curbside. They do the Uber Eats. All of that. I told you about their New York style pizza. It's just completely underrated. If you want New York style pizza in Northern Virginia, it's tough to find, and really the only place you should look is Santini's. 7 different locations: Ashburn, McLean, Chantilly, Sterling, Fairfax, Reston, Oakton. Love them. Lunch, dinner, catering. Santini's has you covered. You're going to find everything you need.